Sandra all the time is here with a cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra. And
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth telling, more problem solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. Good morning, Cayman. Happy Thursday. This is Friday, part 1. How's everybody doing this beautiful morning? Everybody's good? Roll call. All right. I will assume you guys will be jumping on here shortly. I see some of you already. Good morning to our listeners on Radio Land, Bobo 89.1 FM. So good to have you guys here. Everybody, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. If you missed yesterday's show, let me encourage you to go back and listen to it. It was a very, very interesting show. Up until this morning, I was still fielding questions and comments around it. And some people expressed confusion about what they heard. And it's a little bit of a challenging situation to try to understand politically. So if you missed it, we had the Honorable Kenneth Bryan on the program. And he was explaining to us why after some 10 years, he has returned to the progressives fold. Now, it doesn't seem like it's a popular decision by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I would say the vast majority of you expressed thoughts that, you don't think he should do it, which I found to be very, very interesting. I was taken aback by how many of you feel that way. And also not just how many of you feel that way, but the degree to which you feel passionately about it. It was significant. And I must say that even for me, I feel like I have a pretty good pulse in a lot of things that are happening. When I listened, I heard a lot. And so what that meant for me, and ironically, I had no idea that the progressives leadership was over on Radio Cayman at the same time. I don't really watch, their scheduling necessarily, but a few of you messaged to say, oh, they only had 50, 55 people listening to him. And at one point we had over 900 people. We were pushing on 1,000 on our social media networks. And that obviously didn't include radio listeners. So I was surprised by it. Yes, I was taken aback. And if I were in Kenneth's seat, I would have left yesterday seriously contemplating if I had made the right decision. And, remember the question that we had before about, do you vote for a party? Do you vote for a candidate? Are you going to just choose the best candidate? That was a poll question. Most of you said in the end, you're going to just choose the best candidate regardless of party affiliation. But I think that in this instance, what I heard you guys saying is that actually you would be ready to not vote for him simply because he's joined the progressives. And I found that quite surprising. Very, very surprising. One person, I forget her name, her social handle, came on here and said, well, this platform is anti-PPM. And I said, not really. We try to hold everybody accountable. But I do think that it's interesting that anybody we're not sitting here fielding just comments from only people who like one party or another. We try to get to as many comments as we possibly can. And we also we don't, filter our calls in any way at all. And obviously anybody can participate in the poll question. And so I was still surprised that even with all of that, the response was what it was. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Miss Sandra.
Morning, dear. How are you?
Early.
Yes,
Sandra,
yes, sir.
If they're not working with you and putting they come on your show, they can't win. So
I appreciate the endorsement.
I can tell you what Kenny's issue was right yesterday.
Yeah.
So you see, Kenny, he cutting the eggs before they hatch. So my point on that is that he thinking about ministry and power before the time. So can he understand the key? I don't care if he join who he joining. So my point is that if his first job as a politician or a campaigner is to win.
Yeah, he has to get in first. That's right.
If he already see that he can win without the PPM, then he needs to win first. What happened? Kenneth thinking about future of ministry. So you see, he already had power. He had the stage for power. So I want to give you a couple of, I don't stay too long in Holy Up. So you make a point. So at the end of the day, and you know this, Miss Sandra, I don't care which politician in Cayman have a manifesto. If you don't get a minister seat, nothing not getting done. I'll give you some examples. When Mr. Wayne were in power, right? Mr. Wayne Fontaine were in power, right? We had a cynical office in Newland. You know that the cynical office, since he come with the power, he closed down?
Well, I don't think that has anything to do with him necessarily.
Sandra, if it wasn't Miss Sandra, is a game. All right, so I'll give you some examples then. If you know, did you know which minister bring the Savannah post office? My point to you is that if each district don't get a ministry position, don't get none. Each minister scratch each other back in us. So I'm gonna give you some examples. You ever drive north side down to the road?
Well, yes, I know that north side has been getting a lot done.
When you, so my point to you, right? Because Jay is the Minister of Roads and Study,
right?
North side got the best roads right now.
Yeah.
So my point, I just try to make a point. If it wasn't for Mickey Bush, West Bay would have never had a license department.
I mean, this is on the one hand, that I take your point. I understand definitely what you're saying, but I think that that's sad because you shouldn't need a ministry to be able to.
But Miss Sandra, so first thing now, but Miss Sandra, that's the way it is. But they allocate the budget, they run the money, Jay can call NRA right now and say, yo, how you think Kenneth get the road paving in Central? Because him and Jay, two minister friends. So if you realize, certain over the Highland in the last 4 years, you think every way got paved? You think every way got paved in the last 4 years? You know which roads get paved? So Jay friends with Kenneth. So if you realize they had a little paving going on in Central certain roads. So my point, and I call it, and I call no politician, I just try to make a point. I don't care which manifesto. I don't care what your manifesto is saying. I don't care about that. If you not get a means of business. So that what my problem is that what can it try to empower to his people? And he's saying, so I might believe that he's saying his point he's trying to make to his people is saying that, hey man, if I need to align with a group to get power to contribute. You don't realize when Chris Saunders come out. Now you see anything going on in Lower Valley? Not going up there,
Well, he wasn't. To be fair, though, Chris Saunders hasn't done anything the past 4 years. So I mean, even when he was deputy premier, what was Bodden Town and Lower Valley getting from him? Nothing.
He was trying to do something, but he get crushed.
Nah, he wasn't doing nothing. What he was doing was harassing civil servants.
I know, and I'm not trying. Yeah, I agree. He wasn't really doing nothing much, but I just want to emphasize the most of the voters and the people that listen and talk.
Well, I think too that we need to get away from. I take your point, but I think we need to get away from paving roads means that you're actually doing anything.
No, Miss Sandra, my point, Miss Sandra. So when I say paving roads, you know why. All right, Miss Sandra, you know why John always aligns with each group. John get the most done. All right. You think?
Are you really? No, back it up. What has John gotten done for his constituency?
I'm gonna tell you now. Let me tell you. Okay. I'm gonna tell you.
All right.
So John, because of Juliana and John aligned with them and they were friends. John get the beach by Peace Bay. If it wasn't for Juliana, nothing not getting done.
That's all he's done in 4 years.
Now. I can give you an example now. You know that Kenneth Bryan, not about his ministry. I can give you an example then. Why don't you say politics very confusing in Cayman? All right, Kenneth Bryan is the Minister of Tourism. He building a park in Scranton. It's because the Minister of Tourism have no authority to be involved in a park in a community. That's foolish. You can't allocate a budget for the Minister of Tourism to build a park for the local people have to do tourism.
I mean, I take your point because I understand what you're saying because cabinet votes on the budget.
Jay Borden cut an agreement. He cut an agreement with Kenneth to allow the minister parks in under the Ministry of Jay. How would the Minister of Tourism building a park in Scranton have to do with tourism? How our budget? How that even possible that a man building a park in a local community under the budget of tourism? That makes sense. That makes sense.
No, I mean obviously there are other things other than tourism that Georgetown Central might need, but all right. I take your point. Leave me there. We do have a guest.
All right,
we'll pick it back up after a guest. But we do have a guest segment this morning. So let's go ahead, folks, and put a warm welcome or hands together for Miss Nichelle Scott from Caribbean Utilities Company. Good morning, Nichelle. How are you? Just unmute yourself for me this morning. Sorry,
I was trying to make sure I didn't talk while you were on the show and then ended up being quiet.
Oh, I know. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Well, welcome to the program. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And, there's lots that, first of all, let me congratulate CUC. You guys, I saw recently did a job fair, and there's so much that you guys have going on that you're kind of like low key about. And I think you need to, we're going to share more of your posts for certain. But it's one of those things that CUC does a lot, but sometimes, it's kind of glossed over. And you've got some new programs online. But before we get to that, maybe some of our listeners are not familiar with who Ms. Nichelle is. So do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your history at Caribbean Utilities Company?
Sure, thank you. So my name is Nichelle Scott. I'm the Director of Customer Services and External Communications. Been with the company 17 years.
Wow, already?
Yes, you know what? You see that a lot with our employees, and that's because CUC is a good employer. You mentioned that we are under the radar a lot, and I think that's true. That's why I'm here. We're trying to talk more about what we're doing, share the positives, answer questions about anything that's perhaps not going as well as we might like it to, but just basically keep the conversation going. So.
Well, look at this. You're getting some love. Barbara says, love CUC. Aw. Thank you, Miss Barbara. That's very, very nice. This is great. And you've got a new program that you're going to be talking to us a little bit about today, talking about Empowering Cayman. So what is Empowering Cayman all about?
So we've launched a new subsite to talk about our sustainability efforts. And I know some of our customers may be like, well, why should that matter to me? Why do we need to know about these projects? Well, your support of these projects and our implementation of these projects are to help you. You would have seen, Sandy, we issued a press release this last month talking about rates going down, or actually it was earlier this month. I think it was very close to Valentine's Day, showing our love. And it talked about the different projects that we've done and how those projects have increased the fuel efficiency of our units. And the more efficient our units are, the less fuel we use and the less costs we have to pass on to customers. And that's showing in the rates, right?
Yeah.
So Empowering Cayman talks about those projects, talks about how we're trying to reduce emissions, trying to improve our efficiency, and trying to move on to projects that don't even have emissions, talking about renewable energy, battery systems. We've just installed our new battery systems, our energy storage systems. All of those things impact our customers in positive ways, the way they live, and the expenses that they incur as well.
Nice. All right. So this is fantastic. So, and I think that it's also, it demonstrates that at some level, obviously CUC cares about saving money and passing those savings, as you say, directly onto the consumer. And I think that that's, that matters because there are a lot of businesses out there who don't think about their costs and their bottom line, because if they can, realize savings in different areas, then the consumers hopefully will directly benefit. So fuel factor, and this is something I know that we have kind of beat down into the ground because it's one of those things that I think a lot of people are still misinformed about. They think that CUC makes money off of the fuel. So it takes fuel to run these generators. It takes diesel and so on to run generators, right? And so just explain to us again how that process works. CUC acquires the fuel and it runs the generators, and then we use electricity. Just kind of break it down in layman's terms so that we can understand it.
I will do my best. So we have the generators, which basically create the electricity that the country uses. And we obtain the fuel from the two fuel companies on island, right? So we purchase that fuel from the fuel companies, and obviously we have to recover those costs. So we pass the cost on to the customer, but we don't make a profit on that. We don't say, okay, well, let's add a bit to cover, the cost of bringing the fuel in or anything like that. When I say that, I mean in terms of our labor. Nothing is attached there. Our labor and everything that we do is in the energy charge line. But for the fuel, we add nothing to that. There's no profit by CUC on those fuel costs. So the lower we can reduce, the more we can lower those costs, excuse me, the more it benefits the customers. So affordability is actually one of our #1 priorities right now. It's something we're working on consistently. And our Empowering Cayman site talks about that, talks about the projects that we're trying to implement to make those happen. And just a reminder, I know everyone thinks we're a full monopoly. We can't do utility scale solar without a competitive bid being issued by the regulator. We can also propose it to the regulator, but in terms of being able to proceed, the regulator does prefer for it to be a competitive process, understandably so. And I think the public prefers that as well. And so we're waiting for that to come along to be able to say, let's do renewable energy next. I know I went a little off tangent from the fuel, but I thought they were related.
Because the point again is that it's a pass-through charge, basically. And I think that that's important because I keep seeing people who get it wrong. They're like, oh no, CUC is making all this money off of fuel, whatever. And it's actually a pass-through, which, some business models may be different. But the one thing with CUC that's required again by the regulator is the fact that they have to itemize their bill in a way where you get to see all of the charges. So there's no hiding, what is going on there. So they show you your usage, and then you see your kilowatt, your fee per kilowatt, what your fuel usage was. All of that is good, nicely itemized for you. So we have Anthony saying that, CUC is only coming on here because it's a political year and they want to talk about, he says, great PR, keep CUC off the radar of discussion. Nichelle, this is certainly not your first time on the show. So let's respond to Anthony and talk about your commitment. I know you're head of external communications. Talk about your commitment to being more transparent, because now for a couple of years, you guys have routinely been coming on the program. So if Anthony, I feel like giving you a D- on today's section of the class because he hasn't been paying attention. You guys have demonstrated a commitment to coming, taking your licks, talking to people, trying to educate the public. So tell us a little bit about this new communication strategy, which has been going on for at least 3 years now, I think, and why you're committed to doing it.
Thanks. So you're right. I think it's been about 2 years. We're working to communicate more with our customers, with the public, and in different ways. Increase social media, joining you, Harry Sandy, having the conversation. I track all the comments. Like when your article the other day, we try to make sure that we're staying informed and staying visible and available to answer questions. So in fact, it came out of the comments that we received from our survey. People may think we don't look at those surveys and the results. We do. And some of the feedback was, you need to interact with us more. So here we are. And there's more to come. So maybe they have not seen me as much. Sasha, I think, has been on the radio a lot more.
We've had Sasha, Jiva. I mean, we've even, when you guys were doing, what was really quite good is when we did the in-house interview and then we aired that. We got to do more of those too, where we just sit down and have like a little Q&A segment. But this type of interaction is important. And our listeners know that, listen, on this platform, we're committed to bringing people the information. Some people love it. Other people are like, yeah, whatever. They're just here for the political sus. But they can always go back and listen to these segments and they will see, in my honest opinion, that there has been a, commitment to communicating directly with the public. You see their questions, you take their feedback on board, and then you're able to action it from there. So we do have a comment and question from a listener, and he says, please ask her, what is the renewable energy kilowatt charge on the bill?
Thank you for that question. I know that's an area of confusion for a lot of customers because they're saying, well, I don't have renewable energy on my roof or in my yard for wind, for example. So why am I being charged for this? So we, as you know, we have a rooftop solar program, it's a customer-owned renewable energy program. It doesn't have to be rooftop. We do have a couple of people who've done windmills, but the majority is rooftop solar, and there's also a solar farm. So we purchase electricity from those people who have rooftop solar, as well as from the solar farm, and we sell that electricity back to customers. So as we get more and more renewable energy, you'll see the fuel costs start to decline because less and less of that energy is coming from diesel related sources. And then you'll see the renewable energy charge hopefully not equal out. The goal is for it to actually be less. The ultimate goal is that the bottom line will be lower because the plan is for renewable energy to cost less in terms of providing energy to Cayman. By the way, most countries can't say that. Most countries who are moving away from coal, moving to renewable energy, it's going to increase their electricity costs. But because we're a small island nation moving from diesel to solar, we get the benefit of actually seeing decreased costs. That's unique, and it's a fantastic opportunity.
Interesting. Okay.
I hope that answered the question.
Yes. So, I mean, I think the idea is that, solar is something that everybody claims that they want, and you're trying to push people more in that direction to look at maybe not just solar, but renewable energy options. Solar is certainly one of them. And for us in the Caribbean, with some degree of beautiful sun, that's important. I myself, made the sacrifice years ago as a homeowner to get solar. It's not that I'm rich and I had all this money sitting around doing nothing. In fact, I didn't have any money sitting around because we were new mortgage holders, and we decided, based on what we knew was happening within the industry, to go ahead and make the sacrifice, go to the bank, get on our hands and knees and say, CNB, we need a little bit more money to put in a solar system, to put in our solar panels, because again, we saw the savings. And from my personal experience, it was amazing how from literally the first month that we got a bill after that, it was like $60. And then it kept going down from there. And at points, we were getting a credit from CUC. CUC was paying us, at least in the way of a credit, every single month. And that was good to have that savings. So even if you're saving $400 or $500, obviously costs have gone up since then, it's still a savings that we can realize and we can look at our bill and see. And so I think the idea about the solar program is, in order to make it viable in such a small community, all of us have to share in the cost of pushing that forward. So if you see a little charge on your bill, it's about, yes, I'm supporting solar, even if I don't directly have it and I don't benefit from it. The idea is you can benefit from it. And so the more people that we get on a solar program of some sort, whether it's the big scale solar farms or whatever, the more all of us as consumers will ultimately benefit. And speaking about the trickle down and the overall benefit, this person says, good morning. This may be a trite point, and we should remember that CUC staff also pay CUC bills. They have skin in the game when it comes to increased efficiency and cost lowering. So can you tell us, do you get a discount on your bill? Do you get free electricity?
No. So that's a company policy. No one, including our CEO, no one receives a discount on their electricity. And the reason for that is, if we understand what customers are experiencing, it helps us to understand where we need to have the conversation, where we need to work. So for example, one of our biggest topics is energy efficiency, because we have, so when you issued the article about the average cost of bills going down like 16%, I saw the comments on there, well, who has that consumption? That's actually the average customer's consumption for residential. But so it was 1,063 kilowatt hours, if I remember correctly. If you're above that, which I know there's some of you who are, you're not in the average range. So we do have some customers consuming 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 kilowatt hours. That's a lot of electricity. And it boils down to things like their air conditioning is very inefficient. Or it may be something like a pool pump. I can't tell you how many customers I talk to who have a defective pool pump that's costing them an extra $500 a month. So I went off topic again, but I promise it was related. But nope, none of us get a discount. And it's because when we don't get a discount, we understand what's important and we empathize.
Yeah. Good. All right. So another question following up, because I think this person's asking this because there's been some misinformation on other platforms about this. So they said, just to confirm, the renewable energy kilowatt charge is not a charge where CUC is charging the consumer for CUC's investment in the solar farm. So that wouldn't sound right because we've been paying that charge for quite a long time. And you guys, the solar farm is a newer investment model.
So we talk a lot about how CUC is a monopoly, and we've been trying very hard to explain that we're not for quite some time. We have a exclusive license for transmission and distribution. That's the poles. So to bring the electricity to you. We do not have an exclusive license for generation. What that means is if anyone else, so for example, it was in the news about how we were going to use the landfill to generate electricity, waste to energy. We, as CUC, would have had to purchase that power and sell it back to you. So it'll show up on the CUC bill, but they are responsible for the cost effectiveness and how that translates. The renewable energy charge is the same way. We're buying energy from various solar and other renewable energy options, and then we sell that energy back to you. So we're taking it, we bring it in, and we issue it out through our substations and send it to your home. And so a portion of your energy is coming from renewable energy, and you're receiving the charge for that. And then a portion, the majority of your energy is coming from those diesel generators, but you're receiving a charge for that. And it's just about letting you see, well, here's how much of your energy came from renewable energy, and here was the cost. And just tying into what you said, Sandy, yes, rooftop is a big deal. We all need to participate. And there's also a balancing act there. So when we first introduced the customer-owned renewable energy program, we had very attractive rates to attract people to the program, but that's not sustainable. So the rates do have to go down to the point where they're not going to hurt the public, because that energy that we're purchasing, we then have to sell it back.
Right.
So now we have to have that balancing act with rooftop solar, for example. And the good thing is the cost on rooftop solar has gone down as well.
Yeah. So yes, and I want to dig into that a little bit more because I think that's an important point for us to really understand. We do have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning.
Morning, dear.
When you were explaining just now about customers not necessarily benefiting directly from solar, Sandy, I think you misspoke there. What you said was that because they don't have it on their roof, but they should. I think what Michelle is saying is that they actually do benefit from solar, that they may not understand it because CUC is purchasing it from renewable sources and passing it on.
Yes,
so
she kind of followed up with that. Yes.
Yeah. But about the generation part, because I get this question sometimes. People ask, what they think. The way the conversation normally starts is that they want to be able to use solar, but what they want is an automatic switch, so that it switches between CUC and their solar panels automatically. Now, it's explained to me that can be done, but for some reason, it seems that CUC isn't doing that or doesn't want to do it. I'm not sure which one it is. But that's one of the points. And then usually where the conversation goes from there is, well, to Michelle's point that they don't have an exclusive on generation, is that I say to people, well, do you know that you can actually just disconnect from CUC?
Yes.
And make all of your own energy yourself?
Yeah.
And they're like, can you do that?
Yeah.
It's
not going to be as easy as people think, but they can do it.
Correct.
Well, there's another element to it. And that is, it's not actually going to be as cheap, because to generate power yourself is more expensive.
That's right.
Than doing it through CUC. And that's a part that people really need to appreciate. Like, the stage at where the technology is at the moment. That's just the reality.
Yeah. Thank you so much, caller. I appreciate that. And to Denny's point, this is why, you know, some people are like, oh, Sandy loves CUC. No, I appreciate CUC because I remember Hurricane Ivan. And I remember when I had that generator running, not even 24/7, just the evenings so I could sleep and not burn up with a fever, just so I could have a little bit of like, it was only the refrigerator and the air conditioning. And what I was paying to refuel that was, this was what, 20 years ago, was astronomical. And it really brought the point home to me personally that, oh my God, if I was trying to come off the grid and do this on my own, even if I had solar and all these other things, it would not be cost effective. It would cost me more to do so. And it would probably be environmentally not as friendly as you think. And I'm thinking about the one guy, as I say that, who, you know, CUC doesn't want him as a customer because he keeps stealing electricity. The one guy in town, look at all the contraptions he had trying to run a house, all of the solar panels, but then he was also simultaneously running generators, causing noise in the neighborhood for his neighbors. So there was environmental concerns about that, the consumption of him running generators, unsafe wiring. You know, if you try to do it on your own, I would challenge you and say that not only would it not be cost effective, but you'd have probably safety concern issues, and you'd also have environmentally unsafe concerns as well. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning. I got a quick question.
Morning.
She was saying that CUC buys their fuel on island, right?
From the providers, yes.
The providers on island.
I got a quick question first. So, is it cheaper to CUC to buy on island, or cheaper than imported, or does they buy on island just to support local?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you so much.
That's a great question.
Why do you purchase from the two on-island providers?
A couple of reasons. Yes, it's important to support our local providers, but they also work very hard to ensure that we receive cost-effective rates. There's a lot of formulas that go into that. They're looking at rate structures internationally as well to make sure that the rates we receive are competitive, and it ensures continuity in terms of the service. We're a priority to our local providers. We're not always a priority to international providers, right? So there's multiple reasons. They work very hard with us, especially in hurricane season, where we might be cut off from supplies, to ensure we have adequate backup to last us at least, we have a specified period in terms of how long we can go without supplies being able to reach us, and they work with us on that. So I think there's a lot of benefits to us working with the local suppliers of fuel.
Right. That's interesting. I hadn't really thought much about that. But yeah, and to be fair, I mean, we think CUC is a huge company here in Cayman, but probably compared to the region and even beyond, you guys are probably relatively small in terms of the consumption and number of customer base that you have as well, right? Because I think of like a corresponding country like Jamaica, for example, with millions of people. I don't know what the Jamaica equivalent of CUC, what they have in terms of their customer base, but they might have a little bit more bargaining power if they were to reach out to like regional partners and so on. But Cayman doesn't necessarily have that, I would think, either.
Correct.
Yes.
Sorry, I'll let the customer.
Yeah, caller, good morning.
Yeah, last question, Ms. Nanda. This is the
Sure.
last caller for the day. So, understanding the sort, so CUC initiative is to promote solar for the Cayman Islands. CUC have over 33,000 customers. So CUC is a profit-making business. So my question is that if the 33,000 customers get solar in the Cayman Islands, CUC not gonna make no profit? So I don't see that as a business model.
Okay, well let's explain the business model. I think you're a little bit misguided, but listen to her response, because I can already tell you from the perspective of a business owner, and Nichelle has touched on it already, there are many ways that they're going to make profit, and becoming more energy efficient doesn't cut into their profitability. It actually saves them money, which means that not only are those savings passed on to you, but it's also going to increase their profitability. So being more efficient, being more energy efficient, using your Empowering Cayman model, Nichelle, people are trying to understand, how do you save money? But I think when you understand businesses a little bit, if you break it down in a different way, the more efficient you are, the more you can invest in additional technologies that will propel you into the 21st century even more. The more you're saving means that your bottom line is actually getting better, not getting worse. And you also pass that on to consumers, but your consumer base is also growing. So let's talk about that growth a little bit. I know that during the summer last year, we had Mr. Sasha Tibbetts come on the program, and CUC said, listen, we're kind of at the max of what we know we can carry in terms of the load as a utility provider, right? So we want to warn people, we're not planning to have blackouts, but because we're sort of tethering on the edge, that's a possibility. So you also continue to grow as a company. You continue to have, we see all the construction and commercial spaces, residential units going up. So you're still able to be profitable is the bottom line.
So I'd like to touch on a couple of things, because I think the caller's question as well was also in relation to rooftop solar. Like, if everyone's out there generating electricity, basically, what's your job now? So yes. Our job is twofold. It's to also carry electricity to some of those people who don't have rooftop solar, for example. That's number one. Yes. Remember, people with apartments, some roofs are not strong enough or not made to actually support solar. Maybe they're not in the right direction. Secondly, a lot of houses that do have solar, they will tell you the solar can only provide some of their electricity. Mm-hmm. Let's just remember, solar only provides energy in the day, right? Mm-hmm. And even what it provides in the day, it doesn't usually provide enough for a typical household, especially as we use more and more electronic devices. So we still need battery systems to store some of that energy and then send it back to our customers at night. And I guess the third point would be that, based on our assessment, what we're seeing is, in terms of rooftops, we still only have enough rooftop space for maybe 25% of what the island needs in terms of power. So even if every rooftop was covered, it's still not going to be enough. As I mentioned before, a system doesn't always provide enough for that specific property. So even if all roofs were covered, it's not going to provide all of the energy the entire country needs. Mm-hmm. So that was one part of his question, I believe, and hopefully that helps to answer the question. So it actually lessens our load for us to share the load with rooftop solar, as well as long as it's affordable. I can't stress that enough, because we don't want to pass on high costs to our customers. And then we would want to also move to utility scale solar. I hope that helps.
Yes. And I mean, point taken that not everyone is going to be able to get, on a individual solar plan, but that's why the large scale solar would provide some cost savings to a much larger portion of the community. And yeah, I mean, listen, I learned so much about this because, like I said, we decided to delve into getting solar panels. And so it's not as, initially we were getting a lot of like credit bills, but then we started to consume more. We started to use more. Our consumption increased, and I, know that because I look at the consumption and our bill. And I also moved my business at home, so I'm here more often. I'm using, the equivalent of a high-end gaming machine to run the show and all these things. So there's definitely more usage. But I thought that it still made sense, even from a cost savings perspective, instead of having two CUC bills every month to pay, one for a rental space and then one at home, let me just operate my business from home. And, that means increased costs and whatever. So I no longer get a credit from my solar, but it's still a savings of $400 or $500 every single month. And it's great to still save whatever the amount is. I'm still happy that it's there. So we've talked about, yes.
I wanted to touch on something as well. So you did touch on the fact that we announced last year that we might have to, the industry term is load shedding, right, or you can call them rolling blackouts, rolling outages, whatever. There are different terms, but the industry term is load shedding. we did announce that, and how we got around that was, one, our maintenance teams worked around the clock until generation that we rented. So we've rented generation. So we've rented additional diesel engines and shipped in to meet the needs of our customers. Now, that being said, we've got some major hotels coming online. We've got a lot of properties being built. So that need for energy continues to grow. So just a reminder that we still have to install additional generation, whether that's solar, whether that's diesel, and that's for the regulator to determine what next steps are in order for us to meet the needs of Grand Cayman. So we're carefully watching that and tracking that increase in growth in terms of energy requirements.
Yes. And someone's listening to someone is listening to the show, and they said, thus utility scale solar is the way forward, not rooftop. Rooftop is the necessary / useful part of the mix. So, we talk about the transition. There is a bit of transition for us to get to sort of the utility scale solar. We can't get there overnight. Like, you can't just throw up a utility farm, solar farm overnight, and it's going to be working perfectly. So we know that CUC, we've had this discussion before, is looking at potentially, getting to a more sustainable model in a phased-in approach. One of the things that you guys were looking at, you have to remind me of the name of this, Nichelle, was actually getting engines that can accommodate, what is that other fuel type called?
LNG, liquefied natural gas.
Right. Is that still something that you guys are exploring?
Yeah. So part of the reason that our fuel efficiency has gone up so much is we've converted 3 of the engines to be fuel ready. That means they're going to be able to run on diesel or to be able to run on LNG. There's just one last step to be able to go over to the full dual fuel, but basically we term it a life cycle upgrade. So we upgraded the units, which made them more efficient, but it also allowed for them to potentially be dual fuel ready. And if we're able to move to LNG costs are significantly lower than diesel. So once again, that's what we consider a transition methodology. And we also want to have generation for backup for solar. Our company is of the opinion that we can get to 70% renewable energy cost effectively, where it will not impact customers negatively. In fact, it will impact them positively. But past that 70% right now with existing technology, we still need other technology that's firm, basically that you can run 24/7. Remember, solar's in the day, to back up that other technology in case we have a week of storms and there's no sun for an entire week. So there's no solar charging the batteries. Then we still have that backup energy to keep us going.
Yes. Okay. Let's look at some comments. So, not says CUC is a publicly traded company. It has a legal responsibility to its shareholders. Lowering costs to us is a direct conflict to the shareholders.
That's an excellent point. Not quite. So if we lower costs, but increase efficiency, and we can still maintain our same level of profitability. And you're right, we are a listed company. We have to be profitable. If we don't make money, we can't reinvest it in the country. We just can't. So being more efficient, finding a way to lower costs that are of no benefit to us. Fuel, we literally buy it, we send it on. We're not benefiting from that cost. So managing to lower that cost, but still maintain or even increase profitability, but lower our customers' costs, that's a win-win, and that's our goal.
All right. And on the other end of that, Anthony says, Jamaica Power Company has over 700,000 customers. JPS also lost $40 billion in stolen power in 2023. As was reported by the Star Jamaican newspaper. Jamaica also has a refinery, which reduces the cost a little for those residents. However, electricity in Jamaica is still very expensive at 39 cents a kilowatt hour. Good morning, caller.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, quick question. So if I build my house and I apply for solar with CUC, but I can't come off the grid from CUC in the future fully, by law, that would be illegal, right? I just want a question.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah. You can, absolutely.
I get CUC light, then I get solar, then I say 5 years down the road, I don't want no more CUC. I'm gonna stick with solar, get the Tesla batteries. Can I just get rid of CUC completely?
Yes. Yeah, you can come off the grid completely.
However, I would say to you, the reason that a lot of customers hesitate to do that, and the reason you're not seeing a lot of people do that, solar goes down, batteries go down. And if you're taking 2 to 3 months to have something repaired and you have no electricity during that time, then it's problematic. It's not necessarily the lifestyle that people want to live. So what most people do is we have the DER rates, which is a distributed energy resource. Sorry for the technical terms, but basically they ask CUC to be that backup provider. They don't go off grid. Now you have to pay for that service because that means CUC has to have enough generation to give you the support whenever you go offline to do maintenance or because something is broken. But most customers, after they investigate it, they decide, okay, going offline is not a good idea because it means that whenever something goes wrong with my system, I don't have a backup.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
And one more question.
Sure.
So when I do get solar and I get a credit on my bill, why CUC don't use the option of give me back a credit? Say I got $4,000 in credit line. Give me cash, rebate me cash. Don't rebate me on credit on my bill. I want cash.
Well,
I mean, I hear you.
You can ask for $200 cash. For security reasons.
If I got credit on the solar off the grid on your grid, and it's $4,000 in credit line, then I'm not gonna say, yo, Gary, you got $4,000. But I want cash. Give me some cash.
I mean, realistically.
Motivate me to go solar.
All right, thank you. But realistically, no one is going to give you money back. No legitimate company. They would run into a lot of issues, I think, as it relates to thinking you could go somewhere and pick up cash. Where are you going to get the cash from? That's a little bit. Caller, I need y'all to please turn down your radio when you're calling into the program. It's very disruptive to hear multiple background noises and stuff. Yes, sir. How can I help?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
What movie is that from? What movie is that from? Are you talking to me?
I have no idea.
Well, I'm the only one here.
All right.
Robert De Niro and Taxi Driver.
Question or comment this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I was kind of in and out, and I didn't catch your speaker's name.
Nichelle Scott from Caribbean Utilities Company.
Well, Miss Scott, I think, and I might be wrong, but I think most corporations are in business to make a profit.
Well, they've acknowledged that already, so that's fine. What's the next point?
I know from firsthand experience that you guys use flash gold on your contacts instead of 20 microns of gold.
What is flash gold?
Flash gold looks like regular gold, 20 micron, but you take it in and out of the socket once or twice or 3 times, the gold is gone. 20 microns of gold, you actually have to look at it under a microscope to distinguish it. But 20 microns of gold will stay there almost forever. It's about getting more for less.
CUC has gold? You've lost me.
Certain wires and connectors the contacts are connected by gold. Electrical wiring, internet plugs, or whatever.
Gold. That wouldn't be very efficient. Okay.
Well, it's either gold or platinum. Gold is cheaper.
Well, okay, go ahead.
So I know for a fact, I'll give you an example. I have a particular friend who has a particular home in a particular location that CUC is so far off the beaten path that CUC did not offer electrical service there.
In the Cayman Islands?
In the Cayman Islands, out
on
near
Grand
Shetty
Cayman?
Hospital. Yeah, near Shetty Hospital.
So you're saying,
anyway,
hold on, I'm confused. You're saying Shetty Hospital can't get electricity from CUC?
no, I said my friend's beach house.
Oh, near
which
Shetty
is
Hospital.
near Shetty Hospital.
Uh-huh. All right.
It's so far off the beaten path. There was no
That's
CUC service.
When was
So
and when
we-
was this?
So Sandy, he's right.
6
He's
months
right.
ago.
In terms
6
of
months
if a property
Yes.
is, I can't recall off the top of my head right now, but there's a certain distance away from electrical lines, then the customer, usually developers, will pay towards the line being brought out, and then they're repaid as more people come on to the electrical line. So it's actually in our customer service code. If you're too far away from the electricity line, basically it's going to cost so much to carry electricity to you that you contribute to the cost. It's called contribution in aid of construction is the term that's used in
that really wasn't the point. He was given a quote by CHT as to what it would cost for them to provide service to his beach house. And he found it much too expensive. So he just bought a very powerful generator that requires gasoline. And then he bought every Rubis gas station in the Cayman Islands. So he gets a discount on the gasoline and pennies as opposed to dollars. I mean, I personally I don't have that kind of money. Most people in Cayman don't have that kind of money. But he does. And he called Logic about getting internet service. It's similar story.
Okay.
He said, Roy, can you fix that? I said, yes, I can. $5,000. I'll put a little dish on your roof and shoot a satellite.
All right. We need you to rein it in. Question or comment relevant to our guests.
So I'm just saying I fixed that.
Okay.
Pennies on the dollar.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. Sometimes it's a little bit hard.
Pointed out that some customers can go off grid and that the possibility does exist.
But if you have the money to do that, he talked about they're saving pennies on the dollar, but their initial investment is more than the average consumer would ever be able to pay. So
agreed.
Six of one, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It's like you're either paying it here or paying it here. So yeah, I mean, listen, if you're rolling in money and you can go completely off the grid and you don't care about, potentially not having electricity for a while, if something happens and things go down, then more power to you. Yeah. Okay. All right. What are some of the stories included in your Empowering Cayman program? Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy. I was listening to that guy. I wonder what kind of weed he was smoking this morning.
Let's leave it there. It was a little bit hard to kind of get to the point, but let's leave it there. Not everybody is as direct.
It didn't make sense. I still don't understand him. And you smarter than me, and you didn't understand him. So
yeah, I think he was just diverging in different areas. I felt like I had to rein it in a little bit, but we thank everybody for their contributions. Thank you, Mr. Dexter.
Okay, bye.
All righty. What a hot mess. Some of the stories included in your Empowering Cayman campaign.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we're speaking to sustainability and also our efforts around that. So we're not trying to do this in a vacuum. We've reached out to National Trust. We've reached out to various environmental advocates and supporting departments just to help give us advice for us to make sure that we're proceeding in a way that is best for Cayman. We recognize that utility scale solar, for example, takes land use. It does. That's unavoidable. But what we can do is try to minimize impact, recognizing that there's also going to be so much positive impact from having utility scale solar.
All right, we got to wrap up with Michelle here. And finally, give us some information on how people can learn more about the Empowering Cayman campaign.
Yeah, so visit empoweringcayman.com, or you can go to our website, cuc-cayman.com, and there's a link on there as well that will take you to that subsite, and a lot of information on there that, I mean, we're biased, but we feel it's worth reading and worth viewing. So whenever you have time to do that, so that you know what we are proposing in terms of energy and the efforts we're putting forward to ensure that sustainable energy for the future of Cayman. So I want to say thank you for hosting me today, Sandy, and as well as for all of the engagement. I all happy to answer the questions. And, you know, and even if we didn't fully understand the last caller's point, I really think he was just trying to show that going off grid is possible. So always happy to answer questions and give feedback as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
And thank you always for coming on the program and being willing to engage with our listeners, you know, and there were some good questions that definitely came through today as well. We appreciate it. Nichelle Scott, folks, Caribbean Utilities Company. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Fantastic. Well, that was a very, very interesting segment. And of course, we thank CUC for taking the time to join us here. And I think, you know, let's give them a kaboom for that. Let me hold on now. Where's my kaboom button? There we go. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and transition into a few other things.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
The website. Nice. All right, folks. Yes, I mean, we certainly enjoy having CUC come on. So Hill Construction says, so who gave CUC authority over the sun? We just sit on our butts and let these corporations rip us off. I'm not quite sure that I'm following you because CUC isn't in the business of doing the home solar panels. Those are other companies that offer that. And there's some really good companies out there. I mean, the one that I use, I was very, very happy with. And, you know, I think it's really a matter of educating yourself. I learned a lot, like I said, through the process. I now understand, like I've got two actual, what do we call it? The little electrical boxes and stuff on the outside. One is on that side of the house. That's my solar one that takes all the readings from the solar panels. And the other one belongs to CUC. And you have to go through BCU, which is the building control unit planning. You know, things have to be done to quality. You can't just throw something cheaply up on your roof and think that that's going to work either. And solar panels have a life cycle to them. Their efficiency at day one isn't what their efficiency is going to be at day, you know, year 5 in or 8 or whatever. And so sometimes solar panels, the actual individual panels will fail. So our system has the ability to give you reports and feedback on the panels. All that stuff can be checked. And you got to pay attention to those things because you're not going to get the benefit to the, you know, maximum benefit that you can if you've got panels that already have gone dead. And these things are man-made. Things happen. Nothing is going to work perfectly. So Jasan Ebanks said that that sounds like communism. Everyone is being forced to chip in if they don't want to. Well, I hate to tell you, Jasan, that that's life. When you live in a society and when you live in a community, there's a lot of things that you chip into that you don't necessarily get a direct benefit from. And government is the biggest thing you'll contribute to is government. All of the fees that you pay, stamp duties, you know, customs import duties, all this stuff you pay, and you could be arguing that what's the benefit that I'm getting for that? That's how communities work. There is a holistic idea that yes, in order for us to have benefits as an entire community, better education and healthcare and this and that, we all have to pay for it. And if you want to call that communism, well, honey child, it is what it is. You all chip in. In fact, there was a story here in the Cayman Islands about how the cost of healthcare is costing the government of the Cayman Islands a significant amount. Soaring healthcare costs claim 25% of government spending. That's a lot of money. And you know what? That's all of us contributing to it. So every single time we decide to stick an unhealthy burger in our mouth, and that's a choice, you know, we advertise here for these companies, these vendors. It's up to you. If you can't have moderation, you can't be more on the healthy side, we all pay for that. If you think just because you're healthy and fit and suave and whatever, that your health insurance and even your fees at the doctor's office, et cetera, is going to reflect your individual health and healthcare, you are sadly mistaken. You're paying for the neighbor across the street who weighs 450 pounds and has diabetes, the leg is about to get amputated, they're about to go blind in one eye, and all this sort of stuff. We all pay. We all pay, honey child. And that is why, as a community, when we talk about collective responsibility, I suppose we need to get more in line with what we need to be doing. Yes, there's the individual, but the individuals build the community and the societies that we live in. So we all have a part to play. Just an FYI. And you're not getting nothing for free in life, honey child. All right. What kind of tea do I have this morning? Herbal cup. I don't know what flavor this is, but all right, tastes pretty good. Carrie says health care for everyone can be paid with a national lottery. You guys keep talking about these universal healthcare systems, but I can tell you what, from the countries I've seen with it, particularly the UK, I wouldn't want to go over there and get sick because, honey child, looks like you'd be waiting about 5 years to see a physician. And by then you'd probably be dead anyway. The access to healthcare is very, very different when it's that kind of model. And I don't know that it's the best. You learn a lot when you have people who, you know, Marlon's cousins visited us over the holidays. And I found out that his cousin's wife actually has a heart condition, which I didn't know. She's relatively young. And she was talking about, you know, evidently at a younger age, she had cancer, and the radiation that they had to give her, because the cancer was in her chest, and the radiation that they had to give her actually caused this heart condition. And she was saying that she can't even get to see a cardiologist. I'm like, what do you mean? Do you not just call the doctor in the hospital and say, I need a referral to a cardiologist? She's like, no. They tell her, she goes in and says, I'd like to see the cardiologist. And they're like, nope, you don't need to see a cardiologist. A GP can help you. And she's like, I have a known heart condition. I forget what it's called, some fancy word. I need an appointment with a cardiologist. They refuse her an appointment with a cardiologist. I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, my brain couldn't even process that. I'm like, she's like, well, this is NHS. This is how it works. And so I was able to get her into Health City. Big shout out, kaboom, to Health City. I was able to get her in there. And can I tell you guys something? When she went there, she had some of her records and whatever. They did every test. They looked at everything. They gave her advice that for years, her NHS physicians were not giving her. And even they had put her on medication. The physician, the cardiologist here was like, this medication is met after about, I think he said like 8 weeks or whatever. You need to go back and do the ECG because this medication can actually harm you if it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So they need to check you and ensure. Her physicians in the UK didn't even tell her that. I was like, what? Honey child, that don't sound like the kind of medicine I would be interested in, for real. It sounds very different. So she was able to go back, understanding her condition even more, understanding the medication that she had been given, understanding that there was a follow-up ECG that was required. And then if that hadn't, start to, I forget what the heart thing is called, but if it wasn't positively impacting it, apparently she either needed to come off the medication or adjust it to a different one so that it wouldn't kill her. And I'm like, and your NHS people didn't tell you none of this? She's like, no. Good morning, Carla. What a mess.
Good morning, Sandy.
Yes, how are you?
I noticed you just touch health, and I would like to talk about our health service.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time, patients go to the Georgetown Hospital, and we take a lot of things there for granted. Sometimes we go there and we have to wait, and we curse, and we said, "Oh, why do I have to wait long like this?" I went to the hospital with my wife a couple of weeks ago, and we were there from 9 o'clock the night until 3:30 in the morning. And I fully, that shows me exactly what goes on behind the reception area. They had that night, they had 5 cardiac arrests. And right on the emergency floor there, I saw 2 doctors and about 7 support staff working on one patient for almost an hour.
Wow.
It did recover.
Wow.
But I'm just saying that, listen, sometimes we go there and we have to wait. It's because they are not coming and saying, listen, we have 4, 5, 6 emergency around the back, and we assume that they are there doing nothing. And I would like to say that, listen, we need to appreciate what we have here.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Our system is I mean, it can be better, but it's better than a lot of other places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even the United States of America. Have you ever gone in an emergency room there?
Yes. I've been to emergency room there, and I have to wait.
Yeah. And trust me, half the time you fall over dead and they still not paying you the mind.
All right. I'm talking about the pharmacy now. What patient must realize is that, listen, the pharmacist is the last line of you going 6 feet under. When you have to wait on a prescription, sometimes it goes to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist look at it, and the pharmacist is saying to themselves, based on their training, this man is 30-year-old. The dosage of this medication ain't right. So what they do behind the scene is they call the doctors, and sometimes something that the doctor missed at that time, the pharmacist pick up, and when they call the doctor would say, "Oh, I make a mistake. You need to do this and do that." So when we go to the pharmacy and we have to wait, those are the things that the pharmacists are doing to make sure that we get the right medication, the right dosage, and everything. Yes. And I'm saying to our citizens here in Cayman, listen, be grateful and thankful for what we have here.
Yes, thank you so much.
The only negative I have with the hospital is that I don't see where children are given priority.
Really? Normally they're the first ones that are triaged when you go into the emergency room. Children, stab wound, like there's certain priority lists I know that they operate with.
I don't see it. I've been there and I've got upset. I said to the nurse, this child has been out here for an hour and they are crying and nothing. So if they do it, they need to follow up.
All right. Thank you so much.
But as I say again, be grateful for what we have.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. And I mean, listen, nobody's perfect, as the caller rightfully said, but there are far worse examples out there of failing medical systems. Lucky Body says, I can attest that the UK's NHS system won't see you unless you're on death's bed. Carrie says that they have 62 million people in the UK. We only have 80,000. It doesn't mean that the model is going to work even for 80,000. I mean, the fundamental way in which it is designed, I think, is a problem. Hill Construction said, yes, we have to all chip in, especially our infrastructure, for example, schools and roads. Thank you, Sandy, for clarifying that issue. Another contributor to the program says, people in Cayman don't understand the problems with the NHS. That model has some of the poorest records of outcomes globally. Yet we import bureaucrats from the NHS to come and work in Cayman to recreate the NHS junk pile here. Ugh. I've always said, if you're in an emergency room and the medical staff jump on you right away, you are in major trouble. And that's coming from a physician. He knows what he's talking about. Yep. All right. Yeah. All right. John says, had a discussion last night. Unless you're covered by your work policy, the cost to get in for a family to good health insurance plan is prohibitive. One couple were paying $4,900. Yes, John, I can sympathize with that situation. And trust me, that is why, some people hold on to jobs. Like some people could be out there being an entrepreneur and doing other stuff. But when they look at the real cost of doing business, it is prohibitive, and health insurance costs is a large part of that. It almost doesn't make any sense. But what you also need to understand is if you have one medical emergency, one incident, you would be surprised how much that's going to cost you. When we had Health City on Tuesday, we were talking about NICU babies and stuff, and Shamari mentioned these $1 million babies, right? It doesn't take very much for a baby to exceed in cost $1 million or more. In fact, I'll tell you something. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy.
Morning, dear.
How are you today?
Not too bad.
To you.
How are you doing?
Yeah,
Happy Thursday.
I am great for you too.
Nice.
Just some info I'm looking.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're on the topic about HSA, last week my mom calls me and she said she have a problem. She's actually 94.
Oh wow!
Congratulations. And thank you. And she wanted me to assist her. So I said, "Yes, Mama. What's the problem?" She said, "I need you to take me to the Bordentown clinic because I'm having a problem with my eyes."
Oh.
I said, "Okay, let me come and take you there." So I rushed from the West Bay Road, went to Scotts Newlands, picked her up, and head towards Bordentown to the clinic. Put her out, then I went to park because I tried to get as close as I can to the door for her, so she wouldn't have to walk so far. And so I was into the door. When I got into the door, she looks at me. She said, "I'm ready, George. Let's go." I said, "What? You ready?"
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to the car to get a mask to give her because I think I would have to wait at least half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, okay, maybe they give her drops in her eyes and then she's ready to go back home. So I says, "What happened?" She said, "George, I can't believe it." I said, "What happened, Mama?" She said they told her that there's no longer a clinic here and there's no doctor. I said, "What?"
So what's the Bordentown clinic for?
Exactly. And I just need to know if that's a fact. If there's no longer a clinic there and there's no doctor. Because she said she didn't have any notification.
I'll try to
but the sign is up there that says HSA. And there's security guard by the door, and there's one lady behind a desk inside, like where you check in.
So this is the
and
clinic
there's one standing by a door.
Right by the police
station.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, let me try to find out.
And my mom lives in that area. So thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, darling. No problem. I've already sent the question through to the HSA. I mean, I haven't been to that one in quite some time, but I didn't know that did they get rid of that clinic? Oh my gosh, I'm not sure. We'll try to find out. We'll get the answer for you. That's one thing for sure. We're like those, what do you call them? The hound dogs. They have really good sniffing. We can sniff out an answer for you. Cause I don't know about that one. Wow. Not too sure. That would be weird. The previous caller was talking about, before we brought Nichelle on as our guest, the closing of the Cineco office and other things, which he attributes to the fact that the former premier, Wayne Panton, was no longer in the area. I don't think that has anything to do with the closing of that office. And I don't know that the government did a proper job explaining why they closed that office, to be honest, right? And I think that could have gone a long way. So this is now when it comes down to government communications. This is why we need to be very, very crystal clear that government communications needs a lot of work. So they just issued a press release saying, oh, the Seneca office is closed. But why was it closed? What sort of volumes of people? I think that I don't know even that they advertised it well. You know, having these district offices and district locations is a benefit to people who don't always get out of their districts. Like he talked about his mom, who's elderly. She wanted to go to the Bodden Town Clinic to see someone. I think having a clinic there is effective, and it serves the community well, so that everyone doesn't have to flood Georgetown Hospital or the clinics there to perhaps get a little eye drop or whatever. So these clinics are important. These sub offices are important. But my question is, why did it close? And did they even do an effective job of informing people that there was a Seneca location at the, what's it called, Country Corner Plaza? Good morning, caller.
Yeah, Miss Sandy, that's me again, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying to you, right?
You taking advantage of that toll-free number? Well,
I got one plan on you, man.
We toll-free. Yeah, you calling from Flo?
Yeah, I got a plan on my phone. Yeah,
no,
man.
But then toll-free to call us now, Bobo. You gonna use up my toll-free credit. Good for you.
What I was saying to you, right? You remember when Miss Green turned out with a minister? Why she did in her community? She actually had HSA form in the whole of her area. Why say that? I'm trying to tell you now, ministry is very important.
Well, no. Let's back up now, right? I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think there's more to this than meets the eye. As the Minister of Health and Wellness, she had a keen interest in introducing programs at the local community level that included health and wellness, right? And I think that makes sense because that's your ministerial responsibility. But if you will remember, she actually brought in private sector, not even HSA or government. She brought in private sector, aka Health City, to do free blood pressure screenings, all sorts of different like preliminary exams that they could do, like they test your sugar levels.
Where she got that from? Which location?
But for her constituents, because that's where that's where she's elected. I mean, she's not gonna take it to constituent West Bay necessarily, but
or Savannah.
Yeah, but your MPs should be spearheading those types of programs.
But MPs can't spearhead without.
Yes, they can. They can work with private sector, which is what I'm telling you she did.
What we need to get in law a location mandatory for each district. This is what the government need to do. We the people need to advocate for. I don't care if I'm on backbench up front, a minister or not. Each district to be allocated a certain budget for each MP to improve the community. No matter if they are a minister or not, it's simple math. Why? All right, there have been no, you see any paving going on in Newlands and Savannah in the last 4 years? Road pave? Be honest.
But listen to me now. You
see anything improve? So let's look at the areas that improve over time in the last 4 years. The ministers, and then listen, if I the minister of tourism, and my minister over there, the minister of roads, I say, yo, I'm G, what you need to get done? I need to get something done here. You need to get something done. We work together. It's a teamwork. I just calling a spade, Miss Sandra.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's more to it than that. Like superficially, your point is taken.
I'm gonna be honest with you. You might say be more than that, but be honest with you, it is what it is. Like it's a spade. All
right. All right. I'm just saying that the spade has some intricate details on it that sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper on. We've got Alric Lindsay joining us now. Good morning, Alric. How are you? Unmute yourself, please. Mr. Hill Construction says, thank you, Sandy, for letting me post comments on your platform. Keep up the good work. Thank you, sir, Stanley. So yeah, I mean, Alric, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Let's jump in on this because I think as someone who's running for elected office, this is a good segue for you as well. I take the caller's point. He's saying that if you don't become a minister and you don't get a ministry, your constituency doesn't get anything done. Do you believe that as someone who's running for elected office?
I think he's talking about a political reality of how things worked in the past. My approach would be to make sure I have good relationships with people so that it doesn't matter if I sit on the backbench or a minister. I will try to get things done. But the other thing you have to appreciate is
let me stick a pin there. I think, right, and I want y'all to follow me now in this, because we're gonna have to slowly get there. But I think that there are a lot of politicians who push that rhetoric on the people in order to do nothing and to then have an excuse why they got nothing done. So they sit down and say, well, I couldn't get anything done because I wasn't part of cabinet. I wasn't part of the government. But for example, the health program, the health screening at the community level that he was talking about, that was the MP for Prospect. That was her. You can't call every 2 minutes now. You gotta ease up a little bit on the calls this morning. But you can't say, right, that the MP for Prospect did not actually initiate those programs with private sector. So there's lots more that your individual MPs can do. Stop listening to them, looking for excuses as to why they don't want to do anything. And then the excuse they're going to give you is, oh, they didn't have a ministerial position. Let me tell you what my thoughts on it are. They get less done in the community at the district level when they're minister, because they're stuck in that glass house looking at the broader issues as it relates to, running of the country. And this is the same reason why I say first-time MP should never become a minister if they have any sense, right? Because yes, they forget the constituents at the constituency level, and they're the ones who will suffer because, they have a minister and every day they're having to go to a ribbon cutting ceremony and this and that and blah, blah, blah. They're not focused on their constituency, and there's a lot more that they could be doing at the constituency level. Caller, I see you're back again.
Last thing I got to say. Right. So remember I will tell you what things get done in West York because of Mickey. Mr. Andrew, now I can see you one last thing now and killing it this. It's a last call. Why is there is a legacy department in Boardington? You know how would I get there?
I mean, I don't know the exact details.
I'm gonna give you a breakdown now. They're gonna have to kill me, and I know they're coming for me. So you know that Mr. Allen in Tuna Powell is friends.
Well,
so
yes,
Allen,
we know
Mr.
that
Allen
relationship.
Mr. Allen was in charge at the time. He cut a deal with his best friend, or he linked it, and he gave him a peppercorn leaf for the property, whatever. And the thing we bought, so I call him a spade.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying that. All right, we understand your point, It's not that we don't understand your point.
Mr. Ari, what he's saying to you, he's saying that he not disagree what he's saying. He's saying that how it's been from day one, and it's still gonna be like that.
All right. Thank you. We got another caller.
Let's skip on.
Right. Yeah, we have another caller. Let's go ahead and take the caller. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, honey child. How are you?
Good morning, Miss Romelia. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored beyond all measures.
Beautiful.
Now, honey child.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen carefully. I might know if I'm teaching you, but I'm going to tell you a thing or two today.
Aye. All right.
If you is not a bubblehead to some of these politicians, they don't like you. If you are a member of
and make sure you explain what bubblehead is, because some of our listeners might be like, "What the heck's a bubblehead?"
Bubblehead means yes.
You're shaking your head like this. Yeah, you're bubbling your head like this. Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So therefore, if they don't like you and you're not agreeing with everything they say, as an MP, don't think you're gonna get anything done in your constituency. You hear what I'm telling you? Let me give you a perfect example. Look at when Kenneth first got in, right? PPM had Kenneth Brian Hans tied.
Okay, hold on one second. Before you get to that, 1 second for me, please. Yesterday, you would have been listening to the show, I'm sure. And Mr. Brian, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, was on the show. And, we were doing a poll. I need to go check the poll results. But resounding number of people were saying that he had made a mistake by joining up with the progressives for the upcoming election. Now, he was saying that maybe that doesn't reflect his Georgetown Central people, right? Now, you're a Georgetowner. You're not Central, but you're kind of close to Central. Let me ask you what your thoughts are. So it went down slightly. I guess they had PPM people go vote after the show, but it's still 75.44% of the people voted no, they did not agree with his choice of joining the Progressives. What do you get the sense of what's happening in Georgetown Central? You know the Central people, them, right? They down in the east and down all the way down.
Yeah, I can tell
Road.
you, the older folks were PPM, mostly PPM, the older folks.
Okay.
But the younger generation is not that into PPM. That is what I am observing.
Yes.
You understand? But nevertheless, I would not make my cat or allow my cat or my dog to join PPM if I had one. I'm sorry. You understand? But getting back to the subject now, you child, they tied his hands for 4 consecutive years. He couldn't get nothing done in Central Scranton because of PPM and that said committee.
Yes.
The committee wrote him a letter stating they didn't want him soliciting nothing on behalf of Central Scranton. I sat in court and overheard Kenneth asking them information about the park. I then told him to go to the Central Scranton committee. When he know when the Central Scranton committee wrote him a letter saying I have nothing to do with it. You understand? So if you are not favored, and if you're not a yes person, a bubblehead person, meaning yes to everything they say, you child, you are doomed. And if they form the government and you on the other side, I'm sorry. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think to agree with you and the caller, there will be some things that you cannot get done, but I don't agree that means that you can't get anything done. There's still a lot that you can do at the local and constituency level. Are they going to make you reform immigration? No, because the government has their mandate and they're doing all the big high level things, but you have a lot of time on your hands when you're a backbencher. And so you don't sit down and do nothing. You could do a lot in the community. You can do environmentally friendly cleanup programs. You can do after school and educational programs. Remember now, all of these MPs, Mr. Amelia, are still getting $5,000 plus for constituency office.
Some of them for nothing, but that's where they dropped the ball. And Sandy, I feel that if this is happening to an individual MP, that they're not getting anything, I think it's their duty to come back and have a community meeting with their constituencies, let them know what is going on. And it's not that I'm not asking to get things done. It's because I'm not getting any attention. They're not doing anything for me. So I need you guys to understand that this is what is happening. That's where they dropped the ball.
All right. Thank you so much, my dear.
I
appreciate it.
Okay, my darling.
Alric, what are your thoughts on this? Because say you get in as an independent, right? And by the way, I put the poll back up. If you've not yet voted, the poll question is, do you agree with the Honorable Kenneth Bryan joining the Progressives? The link is in the chat section, as well as you can just scan the QR code and vote. If you've already voted before, you will notice that it will block you. And by the way, we tested this yesterday because somebody said, oh, having an IP address doesn't matter, whatever. You know, these are tech people who basically are like, there's always a way around it. Yes, that's possible. But for the average person, there's no way around this. Because in fact, what we ended up doing is I went to lunch yesterday with a girlfriend. She had voted earlier in the poll on her phone. Then we were at a restaurant and I said, try to vote again. Let's test it. And it wouldn't allow her to vote. And I said, okay, jump on the Wi-Fi, right? Because now you're on a different Wi-Fi network. That's a different IP address. Let's see. And it still wouldn't allow her to vote. So, you know, it's a little bit tighter than anything else that's out there doing any polls at the moment. So please scan the QR code or use the link there and go ahead and participate in this poll if you've not yet participated. Someone even said, you know, Kenneth wasn't quite believing that the Central voters are saying don't do this. And someone said, Sandy, get your iPad, go down in Central, go to maybe 25 different households, ask them the question again and input the results and then show that to Kenneth. But listen, I mean, he might not want to believe it for different reasons, but I don't think that these poll results, and it's now 70, hold on. It's 70, what are the results again? 74.89, round that up to 75% are saying no, that they don't agree. 25% say that, yes, they think it's a good idea. So Alric, back to you now. Let's dive into this. You get elected, you go in there as a first-time MP, you don't get a ministry. What do you do in your constituency to demonstrate to the people of Georgetown South that you're able to get things done? Or do you sit back in an office all day and say you can't do anything because your hands are tied and the government not paying you to mind?
I mean, there's so many things you can do. Because I've done volunteer work for so long, I've developed relationships with various companies who are willing to help with community efforts. So that's one way, is maintain those relationships that you have with people and companies in the private sector. There are a lot of people that are willing to help, as long as you set out what your objective is with your community and how you'd like to help. Beyond that, I think, again, relationships are so important. I make sure that I have good relationships with as many politicians as possible. When I get in, whether that's on the backbench or within the government. If I'm on the backbench, I will just work on those relationships to ensure that when I put something forward, that it has a better chance of getting considered. Because to be honest, a good relationship is important for people to agree to assist you with certain areas. But certainly, I'm not going to sit around. And also, when it comes to updating the constituency, I'll ensure that I'll have quarterly or semi-annual meetings. I think being practical, I think semi-annual will probably do the best. Letting the community know where we are in certain things, where the roadblocks are, what steps we can take to get rid of the roadblocks, how the community can help me to put pressure on the politicians to get the stuff done. And the last thing is, I would love to support I would love to see people have more education about how the system works. So like you've discussed on several occasions, how ministers can't interfere in the day-to-day workings of agencies. Now, that is not an excuse. Not an excuse, because at the end of the day, the boards of directors are responsible for these agencies. And the issue on that level, of course, is that boards of directors can only instruct the managing director or the CEO. Then the CEO is responsible for instructing his or her staff to get the stuff done. And the issue here is that we've experienced over the years is that although the board might give an instruction to a CEO, you can't actually make him or her do it. It's up for them to do it. So at that level, even if the board wants something done and it's not getting done, it's actually difficult to take steps with the staff below the CEO to get it done. So I wish that I do agree. Again, I do agree. You don't have to sit back and just give up. There's so many ways you can get stuff to your community as an MP, whether you sit on the backbench or you're in the government.
All right, we've got two callers on the line. Caller ending in 2502. You're up first.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Alric. Thank you for that, because one, I don't know exactly how the system works either. And I think that's a big thing, and that's a big issue right now. But so we were talking about it a little bit yesterday. Backbenchers or whatever, you can bring a motion to the House, right? And that motion that you bring has to be read out in Parliament, correct? So I think times are changing and people are paying attention. So gone are the days when you can make backdoor deals and secretive stuff, because people are paying attention and people are talking. And if you as a backbencher or the opposition or whatever, you bring up a private member's motion and it is something that clearly benefits the Cayman Islands, and the people are clearly saying, this is what we want. I think it would be political suicide for the opposition or the government or whoever to not get on board with that. So if you just sit there for 4 years and say, well, I'm on the backbench, I'm not going to do anything, then of course you'll get nothing done. But if you're bringing motions that are like legit and will benefit the people, and the people are behind you, and the people are saying, this is what we want, you will get things done. Because like I said, they would be stupid to not get on board, because people are paying attention now. People are watching Parliament. They're watching the sitting of the House, the different media like CMR. They're bringing these things to the people. So times are changing. So whoever is elected and feels like if they're not a part of the core government, they can't make a difference. I don't think they have business running.
Yep. Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
One person listening to the program said if they're not in cabinet, they can be out in the community. I love that saying. Maybe he thinks he has a better chance to get elected as a party member, now speaking to Kenneth, than be a minister as opposed to being an independent and knocked to the back bench. Speaking about Kenneth there. All right, caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, Auntie Sandy. It's me, Johan. How's it going?
Very good. How are you?
I'm all right. Good morning to Mr. Albert Lindsay. I've known you since I'm 10 years old, but you're here on the platform in an official capacity. So, Mr. Lindsay, the questions I'm about to ask you are questions that I will pose to any of the candidates that show up on Auntie Sandy's platform. First things first, sir, I want to wish you all the very best of luck. I think you're extremely intelligent, competent, and your heart's in the right place. You're trustworthy, and so I think it's important that we get quality people in the race, and best of luck to you going forward. However, if you are elected to and join a group, first question is, which of the groups are you most likely to find yourself aligned with or affiliated with if you are elected? Because for somebody like me that votes in Georgetown South, if you affiliate yourself with the PPM, there's no chance in hell you could get any votes from me. So that's the first question. Would you like to answer that?
And you're a Georgetown South voter, just to be clear.
I'm a Georgetown South voter. Anybody that votes for the PPM really and truly doesn't understand the impact that the PPM have had on the country and Caymanians in particular when they were in power. If you go from 2013 to 2021, ask yourself, does their track record give you the confidence that you want to put them in charge of the country again when immigration reform was never on their agenda? So I don't understand how, and they were the majority government then. They held the majority in the sort of coalitions. But if you have a majority position then, and you don't make that a priority.
All right, let's stop you there. Let's get him to answer the question. So, Alric, of the existing groups, and I guess there's still a possibility between now and Monday that another one could pop up. Only God knows, because we're seeing all kind of pop-up situations. Of the existing groups, at this point in time, are there any of them that you see, like, is there a hard line where you can say, I'm definitely not going to be working with this group? This group is a maybe. How are you feeling about the three parties? We've got the PPM, we've got the Cayman Islands National Party, and we have the Caymanian Community Party, TCCP. Which of those parties do you feel like align more closely with whatever politically you're doing?
As I said before, there are a number of questions that I asked when I met a representative of each of those parties already. I met with Andre Ebanks, had a good discussion with him. I met with Jay and a couple others. I also had a chance to meet with Mr. Kurt Tibbetts at some point. So I've met all of them to try to understand what they stand for, not just go by what people say about them. And unfortunately,
Kurt isn't running and isn't the leader of the party. So why would he speak on behalf of a party? What role does he play? He's retired.
So I'm answering the question. So I'm not sure if you want me to answer the question.
All right, answer the question. So you spoke to a number of different who you see obviously as still players in the political field. Yeah,
to understand where they stand and what their plans are. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any of the manifestos published by most of these parties. And also, I have to look at what the track record of the parties are. I also have to look at what policy focus they have. So are they focused on the environment? Are they focused on overdevelopment? Are they focused on labor? And unfortunately, this is stated, and I haven't seen any manifesto that sets this out. But I will continue to look at any party that promotes the environment and sustainable development. If I see that in action during the campaign, then I'm more likely to align with that type of party.
Okay, great answer. Second question, sir. Being a lawyer and a qualified CPA, everybody knows how bright you are academically and professionally. When you look at the history of Cayman, the Cayman Foreign Investment Alliance agreement, which was signed many moons ago, led by the UDP and Mr. McKeever Bush at the time, remains on record to be the only agreement that is in the public domain where the public are able to understand what was agreed, terms, conditions, and so on and so forth. Now, that would have happened in about, I guess, maybe 20 years ago, if not before. But since then, we've had multiple agreements signed by successive governments, particularly the PPM-led governments and their coalitions, where to this day, we don't know what they agreed to. We know that concessions to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars were granted, yet all of those agreements are not in the public domain. We don't know anything about it, but and nobody can say, in exchange for the concessions and what was agreed, what the Cayman Islands government got in the terms of remuneration, but more importantly, employment opportunities for Caymanians, and basically helping Caymanians pre-construction, post-construction in a lot of those projects. So what will you do, if elected, to bring light to the darkness of these hundreds of millions of dollars in concessions that were negotiated under the PPM, particularly by my good friend, former minister, and now leader of the party, Mr. Joseph Hugh? What will you do to bring us into the light and understand exactly what we signed up to? Because if concessions can be given to multi-millionaires and wealthy developers where they don't pay any planning fees for significant projects where you don't see any Caymanians, or you don't see the majority of Caymanians employed pre-construction or post-construction, why is it you, me, and everybody else that wants to build 2 apartments has to pay full fees for everything, but people that can afford to pay it, they seem to get a pass? So what would you do to bring light to the murky, dark waters and backdealing of the previous administrations? Because we have the right to know.
The first thing is, like I've talked about this a lot, is our Freedom of Information Act has to be amended, because at the moment it excludes the public from getting certain information. And I totally think that's ridiculous. If you enter into a contract with the government, you must have the full expectation that that contract is going to be disclosed to the entire public. There's no way I would continue to support that kind of infrastructure. So first step, amend the Freedom of Information Act so that the only documents that would be excluded would be for national security and public safety. So beyond that, any contract that the government enters into should be fully disclosed. So that, I mean, that's the first thing. The other thing is, I don't see why the government should offer concessions to wealthy developers and not offer those same concessions to the regular man on the street, because it's the regular man on the street who's having the issues with the cost of living and other challenges. If we have to hold people accountable when it comes to those concessions already given. If you give concessions to someone and they say they're going to employ Caymanians if you give them the concessions, then make them honor it. And if they don't honor it, then they have to repay the value of those concessions to the government, which is for the people.
Okay, Mr. Yerhan, thank you very much.
No, just one last question. One last question. These are real questions, and I'm not emotive and foolish like some of the other callers. But in light of the fact that once you get elected, the administration isn't involved in the day-to-day running of the country, that is the civil service. What would you do to encourage and enforce a greater degree of accountability and improved performance by the civil service, especially at the senior levels where chief officers seem to get every excuse in the world made for them, but they're ultimately directly involved in guiding the process, tracking the concessions, tracking the terms of the contracts, but we've seen nothing but continued waste, bloated contracts, and non-performance. And the last question is, if given the opportunity to join the PPM-led coalition, if they were successful, and I hope to Christ that is never the case, would you actually join them? Because that's a big issue for those of us that live in the South, whether you would join them to form the government.
I think he answered that already, but okay. Thank you, Johan.
No. That's a simple question.
Okay.
It's a yes or no.
All right. Alric?
So he asked a question about civil service, and
I think the bottom line question that he wants you to answer is if you would ever join PPM. He said it's a yes or no.
I don't think so. I don't think so because of the track record.
All right, let's move on. Did anybody else pick up on that little dig from Johan? Somebody says, does Johan need some brownies or what? Talking about he's not asking emotive and stupid questions like other callers. Johan.
So,
if this was a classroom right now and corporal punishment was still a thing, I would have taken out my ruler and tap you on your little knuckles. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Good morning.
I think what Johan was asking there about the civil service can be answered by understanding the distinction between the political layer of government and the administrative layer. The political layer decides, for example, whether or not we build an east-west arterial. The administrative layer decides, well, how do we go about doing that? And so some of that, the administrative stuff, actions are dictated by law. So that's set in stone unless they change the law. But the way that you can influence what is done by the civil service and how it's done in time frame and all of that kind of stuff would have to be done through starting with the caucus, when the political parties set to decide what is going to be presented to cabinet as the consensus. And they would have to outline, for example, let's just use the east-west arterial and say, okay, we know that it's going to take a certain amount of time in order to do the research as to how we go about building the east-west arterial. And then you would have to give an estimate, and you would have to say, look, as a part of the documentation that you put to the House in the form of a bill to make the Appropriations Act, which actually funds the policies that are made by the government, which becomes the directive to the heads of departments about what to achieve. You would have to say, look, we need this project to be done within a certain time frame. That is just the goal, right? That certain things you won't be able to have hard and fast, but you would say, well, as managers, we want you to achieve it within this time frame. This is what we need. And so that I think that's what Johan was alluding to about influencing what happens at that upper level of the civil service. But Alric is correct in that you can't just walk into their office and say, I want you to do this. That would be crossing from the political into the administrative, which wouldn't go down well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, I should also mention that if you do cross over, the civil service will report you. So there are consequences for crossing over, and a lot of people don't appreciate that. They think that the minister has all this power, and there are no consequences. But a civil service person can report you.
Yeah. All right. Very good. All right, folks. Now, Alric, before we of your listeners leave, we do know that you have a political meeting that's coming up this evening. So let's go ahead and play your commercial for that and then give people some details on where they can come out.
This is Alric Lindsay, your candidate for Georgetown South. I'm here, willing and able to serve you, the people of the Cayman Islands. Please join me on Thursday, February 27th, for my first community meet and greet in the park in the Windsor Park area. We will be discussing a number of issues, including job opportunities, support for our seniors, and crime, to name a few. Starting promptly at 7 p.m., I hope that you will join me. Light refreshments will be served. See you soon.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think they got it. So just 7 p.m. tonight at the park in Windsor Park. There'll be light refreshments and also some light food. So come out and join the conversation. It won't just be, me talking to you, it's me talking with you. So hearing your reviews, your input. It doesn't matter where in Cayman you're from, just come down. Especially from Georgetown South, but everyone welcome to come down.
Very good. All right. Sounds beautiful. So 7 p.m. promptly this evening, so you guys don't have to stay out too late. Fantastic. All right. So radio listeners, we're on social media still. We're going to a little bit of overtime. All right. So fantastic. Just replying to a quick message. So here we go. Let me just see now what else we got here. Good folks. Mackenzie says, excellent, Denny. You answered the questions perfectly. Mr. Sidney said Mr. Lindsay would do well in any cabinet position when elected. Alric, let me get a sense from you about how you feel about this. I mean, I obviously have my opinion about first-time candidates taking on a role as a cabinet member. I think that in probably 90% of the cases, it's not a good idea. Now, I think there are exceptions to that. So if you are a business owner, you're used to running a business or organization where you've managed people, you've got great time management skills, et cetera, maybe you could make a semi-argument to me on why you're the exception to the rule. But generally speaking, I feel like no matter what your experiences are in life, so you've come in as a 25-year-old partner at Ernst & Young, you are, 25 years in financial sector, you're a lawyer, you're this, you're that. I think that there's still a learning curve to be had within the system of Parliament, being an MP, getting a constituency office set up and running and all these things. And I think that if you become a minister right off the bat, you lose a significant opportunity to really get in at the constituency level and set things up properly for your constituents. And I might say for the greater benefit of everybody else in the Cayman Islands. What are your thoughts on going in and becoming premier off the bat when you've never worked in government before, you have no public sector experience and so on?
Well, I do have public.
No, I'm not speaking to you. I'm just saying candidates in particular. And do you think if you were offered, this person says you'd make a good cabinet member, if you were offered a cabinet position, do you think with your experience that you would want it and that you'd be capable of doing the job?
I think your first time, I think you should probably be a parliamentary secretary and observe someone who's more experienced than you and learn the system. But that's my personal thought. Yeah.
Because at any rate, I mean, like I said, even if you sat on boards, that's not the same thing as sitting in cabinet and being in at that level. And, I kind of feel like you cheat your constituents a little bit when you're not on the ground in the constituency setting things up as you properly should. Most of the constituency offices, in my opinion, are not being ran optimally. And that is why people are complaining, like, where's my constituent? I don't get to see them. Some of them have, and they have constituent days when the people know, okay, Thursday, you can find Wayne Panton here on his constituent day. His secretary is setting up meetings and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of times that isn't being done. And of course, the people suffer as a result of that. Have you given any thoughts to where you could have a constituency office for Georgetown South in terms of like a location?
No, I haven't really given a lot of thought to it. But they're obviously, because of the cost as well, Georgetown is a lot more expensive than other places. I do see some buildings in town, and I think there are some available spaces that companies normally rent out for special meetings. I would have to evaluate it carefully because I don't want to spend too much money of the government's money on an office.
Well, I mean, I think there has to be an office. Again, this is just my opinion, but there has to be an office. But what some people are now doing is they're taking residential homes. They've even done this in Newlands for the past, 2 cycles, and they've turned them into an office. So maybe that's something to consider, because a residential space, although parking sometimes is an issue with them, sometimes they're more viable from a price point. But we do have a caller in the line. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Sandy, and good morning, Arik. By the way, Arik, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, in Cayman, and he was saying that he thinks that Arik is going to win this time. So I thought I should, give that to you. I've got one question. You know that you spoke a little bit about FOI a little bit earlier on. I know that the CPA, you remember the case relating to the Environmental Council? There was an FOI made, and it was disclosed that they paid, I think, Sammy Jackson about $500,000 and so on, which is fine. He's just earning his pay. Now, the Attorney General has been claiming that he doesn't have to reveal how much he pays to outside lawyers. Do you believe that the Attorney General should be exempted from saying how much he spends on outside lawyers when other institutions don't have a problem releasing that?
If you're spending government money, it should be disclosed. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, it should be disclosed. And let me just close by saying that he has resisted in a case which he spent money on a case involving me. He has resisted that. The Ombudsman has asked him if he can reveal that. He has refused. And we have now reached, today is in fact the deadline that if he doesn't reveal that, the Ombudsman is taking the matter to court. So I'll say stay tuned for that one. I hope that there can be a very clear case made in court regarding that. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
So Alric, you seem to have a commitment to transparency. So let's talk a little bit about that and why you think that is a necessary element of governments. Just a few questions and comments coming in. So Mr. Amelia looks like she apologized. She said, good morning, Alric. Sorry. She neglected to say good morning. She said, you were always in our communities helping out. Thank you. We have YouTuber 2025 saying wealthy developers shouldn't get concessions at all, not when every other Caymanian has to pay for them. All right. Mr. Sidney says Mr. Lindsay would do well. I think I read that one already. Excellent question, says Mackenzie Robinson to Denny. And he says you answered the question perfectly. Sidney goes on to say we need smart, educated people who have a wealth of knowledge. I think that he's quite capable of running a ministry. Allison says, Alric, you're the man. Sophia says homes for offices, really now, when people need homes to live in. Sophia, let's back it up here now. I need y'all to pay attention. In most of the constituencies, because of how the constituencies have a lack of any sort of commercial in their central core area, they have a lack of commercial buildings. Yes, they take homes. Prospect. Miss Sabrina's office is a family home that she was able to secure for the purposes of a constituency office. Well, Red Bay hasn't had one because Alden didn't care about y'all. Let me think. Newlands, that's a house right behind Savannah gas station. That was somebody's house, and that's been the constituency office now for over 8 years at least. The one in Georgetown where PPM has their headquarters, that is a house. That's not a commercial building. So that's what I'm saying is a lot of times if people want to find a location, they have to resort to actually obtaining a house to be able to do so, because there's not a whole lot of commercial buildings available in sort of central areas of the district. The original PPM office, where was their headquarters before this one? I'm trying to remember now. I think that was that a house as well? But yeah, they take homes and they convert them. And I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. That's not trust me, that's not the issue of what is impacting your access to sufficient and adequate housing. Anybody, who else has a East End? That's a house as well. Where else? Oh gosh, I think all of them pretty much are using houses as opposed to like a commercial building with an office space. And you're going to pay far less, I can assure you, in probably 99% of the cases for a house, as opposed to going into these commercial buildings. As a matter of fact, Anthony, I think, was mentioning it earlier about, he was wondering, this is what he said about the unit here in Countryside. He said rent in Country Corner is around $8,000 a unit. I think for that unit where Seneca was, it was actually around $5,000 based on some information that I was able to obtain. But still, $5,000 is not money to just sneeze at. That's, that's a bit of money. And so I think that maybe if they were not justifying the cost of like how many customers are we serving, that's why Seneca end up closing down that satellite location. I do think it's unfortunate, but let me throw an idea out there. Number one, I think Seneca could have advertised it more. There was not sufficient advertising because there are a lot of people in the Eastern districts. And also the hours have to be conducive, right, to people coming. Because if you live in the Eastern districts, as do I, and an office closes at 5 or 5:30, the chances of you getting there after fighting traffic at that time is slim to none. So consider having like flex hours, right? So maybe 2 or 3 times a week, you have your time where it's, you work from 12 until 6 or 7 in the evenings, so that you give people an opportunity to pop in the evening hours. You can't have a regular 9 to 5 and your satellite office closes at 5 o'clock. No one will ever be able to get to you. So think outside the box, folks, when you have these satellite offices and how best they can serve the communities that you're in. Alaric, I think I had a question for you, but my apologies. I've since forgotten it. Perhaps you remember it.
No,
I know. Yes.
At 50 years old, my memory is going to.
Your attention span, you're like, girl, you just kept talking. All right. So yes, again, folks, make sure to come out, and the meeting is this evening in the park at Windsor Park. All are welcome, but he's having his first community yard meeting there. Anthony says converted homes create a better environment for the representatives. It creates a more comfortable and private environment for constituents. Yes, and they can have a kitchen even, because sometimes they are there for long hours or they want to host an event. Miss Sabrina, I remember at her house, like she used one room for the storage of backpacks, and she could lock and secure that room. She had a kitchen, so whenever she had events there, including the summer camp for the kids, they could do food prep in the kitchen. They could have drinks. They had a full fridge. They could store food. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Even the house that Catherine Wilkes in Central has, her office is also a house. And so one of the things that she did was she had a weekly food program working, like that was one of the sort of satellite locations for the what's it called, Alec? You volunteered with them as well. They give out the food bank. Yeah. So she was able to stock food in the refrigerator there in that home for the food bank. And then she would give out, packs of chicken every Friday or whatever. I forget what her distribution day was. So all of these things you're not going to have in a traditional office space. And I think it's a much more cost-effective, like I said, in most instances, it's a more cost-effective option with like multiple rooms. So you can have a private room for like private meetings and discussions. You have larger community areas. I mean, we're not talking about no kind of fancy house, just something more on the simple side. Jaron says, good morning, Miss Sandra and Mr. Albert. Good morning, young Jaron. How you doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, so good to see our young people tuned in as well. So yes, so Alric, what's on the list of topics that you're going to touch on this evening?
Going to talk about seniors and pensions and cost of living and challenges they face, and also going to touch on mental health for our youth, because I think it's important to have a discussion. There's always that discussion that if you have a breakdown in your mental health, that obviously affects other things, including your ability to do things physically. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people don't talk about it, but I do think it's something to just mention as well. And the floor will be open to discuss any other things that the attendees want to discuss. I'm happy to discuss anything.
All right. And of course, light refreshments will also be available. So very good. How are you feeling? I mean, I know you're hitting the ground. You're doing a lot of door-to-door already? And, how's the response so far that you've been getting?
The response is a little surprising because I've met a lot of people who said that they were not going to vote before I declared. I just found that interesting. So I guess maybe they want to see a familiar face, someone who has worked with them before during the last elections. But yeah, I was surprised at that. And there are a lot of people that are volunteering their time to help. So I'm really grateful to be working with a great team of door-to-door people from the neighborhood who understand the neighborhood, who know the issues, and who don't have to go around with surveys to figure out what the issues are. Because that's one thing that voters have also said, is that there are a lot of people going around with surveys and they're trying to figure out what the problem is. And then once the survey gets filled out, then I guess people use it to go on stage to say, these are the issues. And that's why it's so important to have people that are in the community that understand what the issues are and know how to address them, because people are experiencing these things on a daily basis. There's a woman, there's a lady that I was talking to, and, she just stopped working because of health reasons and was having issues accessing health insurance. And then because her husband is only income, there are days when she doesn't have food in her fridge. And I think that some people think that this is just a one-off thing, and they might think it's a one-off thing because maybe they are so fortunate that they never go hungry or they never go without something. But when you're actually in the community and you live there, you have a good insight into what is actually happening. So I really appreciate the opportunity to hear what people are still going through and to hear that if elected, I'll have a chance to address those issues and tackle them directly, not just talk about them.
All right. Very good. All right, folks. Alric, what's your website again? Remind us.
It's alric4cayman.com. So ALRIC, the number 4, Cayman.com.
All right, fantastic. Folks, 7 p.m. in the park this evening. Feel free to come out if you're in the area. I actually had somebody from West Bay said they're going to be in the area, so they're going to just come and have a listen. And then they said, he too light. He not 50.
I'm 51 this year.
Wow. Another person says, I believe concessions, especially the cloak and dagger way in which they have been conducted, are the breeding ground for corruption. My view is that no concessions should be allowed, as it eats up the government revenue stream and places burden of funding infrastructure on the common man. I'm anti-concession, and in my view, they should be outlawed. Wow. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Alric. Alric, this is Siobhan. How are you?
Good morning, Siobhan.
Good morning.
I don't even live in Georgetown, and I was so beyond excited to see Alric back in the race. And I just want to correct him, not if I'm elected, when I'm elected.
Kaboom! There you go. What I say?
I'll leave you there.
Thank you, honey child.
We're speaking it into being, and we're putting it
Yes,
into the
name it,
universe.
name it and
I
claim
think
it.
that's right. I think it's a very good sign that people are saying, and I mean, I've shared with him myself, people are on board and excited and truly felt hopeless until they saw, I'm getting goosebumps saying it, until, I had people, Alric knows, within the group saying, we weren't going to vote. I think it's a very good sign. I think that people are fed up. I think that people are hurting. Like Alric rightly said, I think Alric's heart, his mind, everything about him, he's a man of integrity. I've known Alric for a little bit, a man of integrity. I think he says what he means what he says, and he has just a passion for serving. And I think that he not only brings the very critical intellectual side to this very important election, but also brings an element of empathy, compassion, and just a complete understanding for what we need right now. I think that his responses were dead spot on in that he understands that he needs to be on the ground in the trenches with the people. right on with the I don't need a survey to know where people are. It is so out of touch that that these surveys are going around. They make it seem like we are some million people population country, that they are so far removed from the everyday struggles of this life. And I mean, you know, whether you're in a 6-figure paying job or a minimum wage worker, cost of living affects us all. I like probably, you know, Sandra and Alric I'm fortunate enough that I am able to provide, and I don't really, let me not say struggle, but I'm not pinching pennies. I'm able to, for the most part, provide what myself and my family needs. That is not the case for everyone, and we are so fortunate and so blessed. But for me, it is so critical that I personally will put my head out there and say, Alric understands, he knows. And right now, everybody is complaining about that. And I just think that he gets it. He gets it. And I just want to encourage everyone to come out tonight to Alric's meeting. It's at 7. And for sure, vote for Alric Lindsay if you're in Georgetown South. I think that, you know, like we got to get it right this time, Cayman. We have to get it right. This is no longer, like Alric said, not a Georgetown South race. This is a race for Cayman. We have to take our country back. We have to get the good ship Cayman back on the right trajectory. You heard him say it. He doesn't believe he'll work with the PPM. I do not think that he will. I think that we saw their track record, or I will dare say lack thereof, where the PPM took us, had us, and held us hostage. We're not going down that road again. In my opinion, Alric has no opponents. And I just want to implore the entire Georgetown South to please listen, please watch, please see, please focus and vote for Alric. Vote right. We must get it right this time. And it'll only be right with the right people in Parliament. We have 19 people, but it takes 19 to run that Parliament. I think Alric can and will work with anyone, but you have to get in there, Georgetown South. We must.
Wow,
I'll leave you guys there.
Yes, honey, Chad, talk about an endorsement, Alric. Whoa.
I will
make you feel very good today.
Yeah, thank you. The very kind words. I appreciate, you know, what the caller said. But you know, the bottom line is hard work, and do not hard work with relationships, with having good relationships in place, and not thinking about your personal interests and what you would like to accomplish, but what's good for the whole country.
Yeah. And to be fair, Alric, you know, you've come from, a lot of people may not really know your environment. Maybe this is a great opportunity for us to drop in your the interview that we did with you last election, where we kind of sat down and talked about your background a little bit. I think I might actually, I'm just looking at my Dropbox to see if I can pull that up, because that was such an amazing interview for sure. But, you know, I think that you've come from a background that is humble, from humble beginnings. You know, you didn't grow up with any sort of spoon in your mouth. You're a Windsor Park kid. You're, you know, you were out there in the thick of it. You know exactly what it's like to probably go to bed with a hungry belly and not have all of those things, to be surrounded by, you know, perhaps the questionable characters that you could have easily gone the other direction. You could have been the kid hanging out in the park trying to sell drugs to other kids or whatever. What made the difference for you when it came to you going on a different path with your life?
Well, first, let me say that I only got a few more minutes because unfortunately, printer broke down and have to get that fixed.
You got to get ready for the meeting. Yes.
But yeah. But what I would say is, luckily, my mother's a very good cook, so I never went to bed without a meal. Luckily, because you know she was very well known for cooking for large groups of people. You know, banks, 200 people at a time. So she made sure that, you know, and she made sure we all had a meal. And she also, when I finished university, I realized how much she sacrificed, because I realized what her salary was. And then I think back and I was like, wow, how could she afford giving us that amount of money every day for school and making sure all of us were taken care of. Like the math didn't work, right? So it was like, I'm really grateful for those sacrifices. Having said that, I do have friends that didn't have it the same way, that didn't have, food all the time. And those are still my close friends. So that's why it's really good to understand. You appreciate where you come from and, all the things that people did for you, but you also see what others are going through. And that's the reason why I tend to take a more of a modest approach. I know people want me to just be more confident, et cetera, but I try to tell people it's not an issue of confidence. It's an issue of me understanding what people are going through and appreciating that they're trying to get to the next level. And then it's about me trying to see what I can do to help them get to the next level, and also creating a positive environment for all of us to thrive. But in terms of what made a difference for me, I was invited to play squash by a physics teacher at the time, and also by a biology teacher. So that's Mr. Derek Tyler. And through that program, I was exposed to a different environment at the South Sound Squash Club. And, at the South Sound Squash Club, there were lawyers and doctors and accountants. So I was in an environment where I could see like successful people all the time. I never thought of, what would happen next. What happened next was when I was ready to go to university. I think my friend Sean, Parchment was saying, he got a scholarship from this firm, Cooper's and Lybrand, and I was like, okay, well, it sounds so simple, but since Sean mentioned that, I was like, okay, maybe I should apply, right? So the interesting thing is, when I applied for the scholarship with Cooper's and Lybrand, I went to the interview, and there was this guy from the squash club who was interviewing me. And his name was John Dinan at the time. And it's just so interesting that just from a sport of squash and having that networking there, I was able to meet some people that actually helped to change my life. So I got a scholarship for accounting at Cooper's and Lybrand, and I was able to go overseas to school and get a good education. And that was a great start, And that's one thing that I would tell the Caymans is that networking and supporting other people, it takes you far. And not everyone has to go and play squash. You can play a different sport. You can join a club. You can do other things that you have a productive environment, and you have people around you that are interested in your growth. So that's all I would say is keep working together, network, be positive, don't engage in division, dividing people against each other. And I'm just very grateful for being around such positive people and being grateful for the opportunities that I'm offered. And, because of all those things, that's why I want to work so hard to give back, because I realized what was given to me,
Fantastic. All right. Well, Alric, thank you very much and good luck tonight. Someone is asking if there's a way for them to donate to your, your campaign.
So what I will do is on alric4cayman.com, I'll add a link there. And I'll also need to check how that works in terms of being able to do contributions through that sort of link. I'll check with the elections office, and I'll put a note on my
you're
website.
Fully compliant as well.
Yes, I'll check with the office first, and then I'll put a note on my site, which is alric4cayman.com.
All right, very good. A few more comments before you leave. Anthony says, Alric for Georgetown South. Miss Allison says, yes, I told him that he had to run again. He came so close the last time. Go, Alric. And as I said, you're the man. Lots of people are happy to see you back. Shaka says, plus Uncle Alric has had the opportunity to learn the needs of his community without being in office and would have a finger on the pulse of the community. Marshall says, Alric ran last time and was not successful, yet he didn't disappear from the community life. so many others who now have come out of hibernation to run again. Anthony says, my picks for the upcoming elections are Andre, Kathy, Raleigh, Julie, Joey Tatum. Yeah, we have disagree on that one, Anthony. Alric, Sabrina, KB, Ween, Heather, Ozzy, John, and undecided is Isaac, Jay, and Julie DaCosta? Who the hell is Julie DaCosta?
That's Nicholas, I think.
Oh, Julie. I guess Julie against McKeeva, Julie Hunter, and then DaCosta. Sophia says yes. Sydney says that's a kaboom. Sophia says Alric has always been out there, I must say. Even after the election, he never ghosted anybody. Miss Debbie, good morning. She says, as I've stated before, I cannot vote for Alric, but as a South Sounder, I will encourage my family to cast their vote for Alric. Well, Miss Debbie, maybe when he has a meeting in one of the South Sound areas, you can come out and voice why you are in support of him. Perla, good morning. Allison says, true, he's been around with the people of Windsor Park. Mackenzie says, I couldn't say it any better, that young lady endorsing Alric. Mackenzie also says, Alric, don't give up. You did not get in on the first try, but there's always, he was always helping the people. And Shaka says, Uncle Alric is sounding like a super grassroots candidate. Other people on WhatsApp saying, I'm excited that he's back in the race again. My family and I can't wait to cast our votes for him. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, hi. Morning, Sandy, and morning, Alric.
Good morning.
Sorry I'm calling so late because I think I just caught your exiting contribution. But I just want to very quickly say congratulations to you. And I have a question for you, and I think I know the answer, but I just want you to say it. Sandy, what I have said in the past, I think I called Ralston when he was on your show last week. I asked the question to Ralston, and I asked the question now, the same question to Alric. Your testimony, Alric, that you just gave is the blueprint of the origins of my question that I have asked. And what you've shared is very inspirational for your journey. And this is what I'm really hoping would be the same concern for all of the constituents, for all of the candidates coming in, and that is this. Would you, Alric, support today, publicly state that you will, if successfully elected, that you will ensure that proper legislation is tabled and by God's grace even approved that would change, amend the immigration process for persons getting permanent residency, Cayman status, instead of walking dogs and cleaning up beaches where it's popular for tourists or whatever, but to adopt children and say the Francis Button Girls Home, I can't remember what it's called, it used to be called Bonaventure. Troubled youth, Alric, and adopt these children in the sense of taking them as you're sponsoring them for personal development, getting to know their parents, and then having measurable metrics in place where you can see that candidate A, candidate B for PR has been doing this in the community for these amount of years. Here's where they've taken the children. Here's what they've exposed them to. Here's how they've invested in them, how they invested in their family. Would you, Alric, today commit publicly that you would seek to do that for our youth, our troubled youth? I'm not talking about children in prep school and Catholic school and those private schools. I'm talking about troubled youth, our troubled youth.
All right. Thank you, sir. I think that, go ahead, Alric, I'll let you answer it.
I don't know how you identify which people applying for residence have bad intentions. I don't know how you identify that, because people can present themselves as the greatest person and they have bad intentions. So I don't know how you identify that other than doing some stronger background checks.
And even then,
to answer his question, number one, we have issues with the PR system because it encourages investment and purchase of property in order to get points. And therefore, you have a lot of people who are non-Caymanian, who are out there doing, trying to fulfill that process. So they're buying property, doing their investment. And as a result of that, there's an increased demand for property. And then that's one of the things that is helping the prices to stay up, because we have the ongoing demand. So that's one of the impacts. Number two, I would say, is we know there's a court case where it was decided that the PR system is not compatible with the Bill of Rights. So my understanding is that is not yet resolved. I think that went to a higher court, the Privy Council. I think that's where it is now to be decided. So what has to happen is Parliament, the legislature has to decide if they're going to put something else in place in order for the PR point system to be compatible with the Constitution. Either you do that, or you would have to restructure the entire system. And the way I see it is, number one, let me answer his question. No, I would not want to see any legislation that allows a point system to take advantage of troubled youth. I would not allow that.
Yeah. Can I just stick a pin there? Last time this came up, I actually had someone say, Sandy, please, please, please let your callers know that what they're suggesting in relation to this is very, very problematic. And she is a person who has worked with children, child victims, and so on. And she actually said, I'm trying to go back to her message, because she said, I was listening to today's show and I'm really concerned about this push from listeners and Rolston taking it on. This is when Rolston was on, for there to be direct or imposed interactions between expats looking to apply for residency status and are vulnerable, mainly children and youth. This to me is a major red flag. The question of motivation to work with vulnerable communities is a serious one, and wanting to get points for immigration purposes is not good enough motivation. The reason why people go to the animal charities is because they don't need to be vetted to walk a dog, clean a cage, raise funds. In my experience, when pushing for better safeguarding for youth serving organizations, I can tell you that part of the pushback from board members, Caymanians, and adopting international best practices was exactly the fear that this process would make it too cumbersome for volunteers who were difficult enough to get. What most people don't fully understand is that the better structured NPOs have processes and training requirements along with the vetting process. This means that they invest in people, and for those people to serve their time for a letter is not just an issue relating to investment in the community, but it's a drain on resources. So let's not advocate to make vulnerable people more vulnerable by incentivizing people who have no business working with them, especially given our lack of standards. And I was taken aback by that contribution, and I want to thank the person for that. And they went on to say, I appreciate this is all well-intentioned, but those proposals aren't thought through enough, and these are real-life challenging consequences.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, it's tough. I understand what the person is saying, but then again, like I say, how do you identify who has bad intentions? And it's not a good idea anyway for I haven't seen the point system lately, but I don't see it being a good idea for someone trying to qualify for points by working for vulnerable people. I mean, I think that's a red flag if
that's what you have to do.
If that's allowed, that's a red flag.
All right. Well, Alric, thank you very much, and good luck at your meeting this evening.
Thank you.
All right, folks. And we will be live streaming the meeting. So in the event that you're not able to go to it, you can certainly tune in here on CMR to view it as well. So some of the candidates have selected packages that allow the live streaming of their events. I was actually trying to pull up his conversations with segment. I was just having a little bit of an issue doing that for some strange reason, not quite sure why. But if I can still grab it, just give me one quick second. I'm going to do that. And that's what I love about this platform, folks, is there's so many amazing opportunities for us to engage in something. We might throw out a suggestion out there that sounds on the face of it like a brilliant idea. And then there are child advocates and people who actually work within these organizations and work on behalf of safeguarding children. That person has an amazing role that they played historically in safeguarding children. They're like, no. We don't want to incentivize people to be coming along thinking that this is how they're going to get PR. I think there's a lot of ways in the community in which they can help without putting them in that particular position where, again, our vulnerable children could be compromised even more. So something definitely to be said for that. Let me just see if I can grab this video. This was a recording that we did last time with Mr. Lindsay, where we actually sat down with him in the community there. And he, told us a little bit about his childhood and so on. I think for some of you, this might be worth viewing yet again. So let me just see if I can do a quick conversion on it, and then I will play it for you guys. Sandra Miller asking for his website. Let me just see. I know last time that was shared, so let me just pull that up real quick. I think it's just Alric for Cayman. .com. I think that's it. And yeah, I think that the general feeling is that he's going to knock it out of the park this time. Go and support, go and listen carefully to the candidates and make sure that they're bringing some significant value to the table. Because as other callers have said, we want people who are educated. We want people who are hardworking. All the traits that we talked about here on this program previously. That is precisely what we're looking for in electable people. And, no one's castigating his opponent. Somebody even said, well, who's he running against? The fact that you guys don't even know that, I think, is indicative of failures on that other group. But I'm not anybody's campaign manager, so I can't help you there. So here we go. Email address, he's provided all this information, alric4cayman@gmail.com. Instagram, Alric4Cayman, Facebook, Alric4Cayman, website, Alric4Cayman.com, and his manifesto is also already available on the website. All right, so still converting at 40%, so just give me a few more minutes. Let me see if we can pull this in. I'll read some more of your comments. Tariq says, hey, I'm not from here. However, I was raised to be kind to community. Wherever I am, I don't get this transactional mindset with charity for status papers. If it's transactional, it's not charity. And not only that, to your point, I mean, it is one of the elements of, they want to see when you apply for PR that you are quote unquote integrating into the society. So one of the ways in which they try to look for that is they try to see, what your commitment is to being involved in the community. So you get points for it. You get certain points for if you own property, if you're in the community, so on and so forth. But I think that, as you rightfully said, if you're doing it just for that reason, it is interesting. Having said that, I also want to give credit to a lot of the expat community, because I can tell you that they pick up a significant amount of the slack where Caymanians don't. So Caymanians, we're not the best. And when I say we, I'm certainly not including myself in this, but I'm just saying I'll use we anyway. We're not the best when it comes to animal care and welfare and caring about our pets and animals. That's a smaller percentage of Caymanians that you will find really love their pets like family. And so unfortunately, in most instances, the viability of organizations like, One Dog at a Time and the Humane Society is directly impacted by 90% of the people involved in that being expat volunteers and expats who want to give back to the community and give back of their time. So I don't ever want to discard the contributions that they have made, which I believe are actually significant contributions and have helped many organizations. Rotary, lots of these organizations rely heavily on people. And I hope, like Tariq says, that they are doing it for the right reasons. And YouTuber says, did he say adopting kids for status? What the hell? Laughing out loud. Yes, I think that maybe when it comes to kids, though, you need to be very, very cautious. Take, for example, the Boys to Men program. The person who started that is instrumental, and that is Mr. Murray. He's now a Caymanian, but originally Mr. Murray's from Jamaica. So, we have people coming here and really, really making significant contributions to our community. And I can tell you that for the commitment that I've seen, it's obvious and very, very basic logic to me that he is committed to young people. Those young boys have a lot of respect for him. They go to bat for him all the time because they see the effort that he's put into them on a daily basis, trying to guide them on the right path and saying to these young men, please, think carefully about the direction of your life, make better decisions, and we're going to give you some of the tools to be able to do that. They get them out in the community. They, have mentors coming in and speaking to them. And that's such an important thing. And now that there's the girls version of that, I'm so tickled pink that is happening as well. Ms. Pat says, we as a people must step up our community involvement. And again, I agree. Get involved in these things, volunteer, have your kids volunteer. We're all part of a very small community here that could be so much better if we actually stepped it up to the plate. All right, so here's the interview that we did last time. Like I said, I'll play this for you guys because I think this is wonderful insight into who Mr. Alric Lindsay is, and perhaps will give you more food for thought if you're in Georgetown South and you're contemplating voting for him. So as we started setting up here in Windsor Park, Mr. Alric Lindsay, a political hopeful for the 2021 general election, realized that there was a lot of debris and garbage and used bottles and plastic all over the park. Mr. Lindsay took it upon himself to grab the garbage bin and to simply just start picking up the garbage. Provoked in any way, he just felt like it was necessary to clean up the community, which he is a part of. And I think this is one of the lessons about candidates. Some of them do a lot of things for political gain, and then you have those persons who genuinely just simply care about the community. So let's have the conversation with Alric. Let's see exactly what is on his mind today.
I hear the people talking. What are they talking about? This world's gone crazy, and I'm trying to find a way out. Nobody knows where we're going, or if we're going at all. Nobody cares if we stand, if we have nowhere to fall. It's a singing symphony, playing as the ship goes down. It's a porcelain epiphany, breaking if it hits the ground. I gotta find a way out. So many questions answered with an answer to tell. Too many things on my mind for anything to go well. It's a singing symphony, playing as the ship goes down. It's a porcelain epiphany, breaking if it hits the ground.
Okay, good day, folks. We're here with Mr. Alric Lindsay here, literally in Windsor Park, like the park in Windsor Park. Of course, the entire area is known as Windsor Park, and we're going to have a frank and open conversation with Alric. This is one of what will be a number of videos that we will do with Alric. And for those of you who are new to the Cayman Mall Road platform, this is actually a new segment that we're introducing called Conversations With. And so the idea behind Conversations With is really to try to get to know people at a little bit more of a deeper level. So, you know, there are various persons in our community who we'll see as one-dimensional. So everyone knows that Alric is very much involved in working with the food bank, Meals on Wheels, and even privately providing hot meals for people on a daily basis to make sure that the needy in our community do not go without the very basic of things, which is a meal a day kind of thing. So that's only one dimension of who Alric is. And like most of us, Alric is a man, which means that he's flawed, he's not perfect, he comes with all sorts of baggage and history. And so when you're really trying to get to know someone, sometimes even in a political sense, and you want to figure out, if this is someone that you really want to put your support behind, or someone that you want to vote for, or just anyone in the community that you're a bit more interested in, this is a perfect opportunity through Conversations With to dig a little bit deeper than the surface convos that we can have, that oftentimes you'll see us engage in. Like, we'll invite someone, on the show, and they'll talk about one particular topic for an hour, half an hour, or whatever. So we're here with Alric today. Alric, good afternoon, and thank you so much for agreeing to this. Alric is actually, he's our guinea pig in a sense, that this is our first Conversations With segment. So he doesn't even know what to expect. He doesn't know what questions are coming.
Yeah, no idea.
He might be a little bit nervous about what this all entails. But at the end of the day, we believe in being very organic here in Cayman Mall Road. So we don't, anyone who's ever been in our program will tell you we don't prep questions in advance or anything of the sort. We're just like, let's jump in, have the discussion. Because, of course, our basic premise is always an underlying unfiltered truth. And to get that, I think that there should be no reason why you should preempt people in advance of even what the discussion is necessarily going to be about. They're just ready, and they just answer the questions as honestly as they can. So, Alric, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm always curious about you. I've seen you around in the community. You ran in the last election. I must admit, when you ran last time, I remember saying to my friends, who is Alric Lindsay? Like, I don't even know who he is. And I've got a girlfriend, Mary Pessy, she works at Maple, and she's like, oh yeah, Alric is a lawyer. And then since then, I've come to find out that there's so much more to you than just being a lawyer, right? You're a lawyer, you're actually an accountant, CPA, yeah?
Yeah, I qualified as a CPA as well.
Yeah, so professionally, you have a lot going on, but we'll get to those things, I think, a little bit later on. I want to start at the very beginning and just get a sense of where you're from. So one of the reasons why we're here in Windsor Park is because these are your stomping grounds. This is where you actually grew up. And so tell us what it was like as a kid. What are we talking about, the 1980s? Don't want to age you, but...
Yeah, 1980s.
Yeah.
So I actually grew up across from the park. Across from the park is one house. That was my grandmother's house. And behind her house is where I grew up. It's not a mansion or anything, but, we survived,
Yes. Okay.
So I was there all through primary school, or should I say mostly through primary school, because my brother burned down the house and we had to move from over here to a house right around the corner here, which is Mr. Eldon Rankin's. I'm staying there for a while.
So let me just back up here. You just kind of passed over this as though it was no big deal, but you said your brother burnt down your house. What? That sounds kind of crazy.
Well, the story was that he was dared to do it.
Wow.
By a cousin of mine, and so I still remember the smell of gasoline and
Wow.
up to.
So he deliberately like just spread gasoline and lit a match.
Yeah.
So he intended to burn down the house. It wasn't like, I'm going to start a fire in the yard and it got out of control.
Of course it was intended because I think I was actually in the house at the time that I think he told us to leave or get out. So I still remember that smell. And even today, I have a sensitive nose for gasoline.
And how old would you have been at the time of this incident?
I would have been around 7 or 8.
Wow.
But memories stay with you, which is why I think that when you dig deeper into things, like the way you are now, you get more of an appreciation for things that look a certain way on the surface in Cayman.
Yes.
I'm not going to go into it today, but when you talk about things like education, for example, and you wonder why a child is misbehaving in class.
Right.
It's not because the child is a bad person, it's because it's so complex. There could be things that happen at home that the child is seeing and the child is just acting out. So I'm just saying, there are things that do happen on a deeper level, and that's why I'm happy you're doing this type of show, so people can see who's really behind that person and what's kind of behind their statements.
Right.
You're never gonna fully get it, but I think people will have more of an appreciation for, other people in society that you interview by having this format. I think it's a great thing to have.
Yeah. Okay, so you have this memory at what's relatively a young age, 7, 8 years old. I find as someone who left Cayman right at that, like I just turned 9, that even my memories up until that point are a little bit like disjointed. Like I remember certain things, and then there's a whole lot that I have no recollection of.
Yeah, well, you will remember trauma.
Yes.
So there are significant events. I mean, my grandmother's house is right there, and I remember almost falling into a well because there was a well where she used to get water from, fresh water. And I slipped one day, and I was holding on by one leg, hanging down into the well, and I couldn't swim at the time.
Wow.
But the lady who was helping on the day, who was helping to clean the house and stuff, instead of helping me initially, she was actually punishing me.
While you were hanging on?
Yes, because I guess she was saying that I shouldn't have been playing in that area.
Wow.
So you do remember the trauma, and again, that's why I keep saying that it is important to understand the deeper deeper picture. It is important to do what you're doing and dig deeper.
Yeah. All right, so you grew up in Windsor Park. 7 or 8, you kind of moved homes because of this unfortunate incident with your brother setting the family house on fire. Was it a complete, do you remember if the house completely got destroyed? Did you lose everything, like in terms of like clothing? Do you have any of those types of memories?
That's kind of, I don't really remember those details, but I suspect that we got a lot of help in terms of donations, which is what kind of drives me to do some of the stuff that I do. It's to show that I appreciate what was done for me.
Right.
There's a lot of deeper things that happen.
I think if I can just interject this, that you and I are kind of kindred spirits in a little way in terms of like helping other people. And I think you're right when you say that it comes from having had experiences as a young child where other people helped you along the way. Because, I remember, I find like people always helping each other in one way or another. But even when I was in high school or going into college, there were people who had no reason, nothing to gain, who just stepped up and say, hey, I see some potential here, or I think you're a talented person, and so I want to contribute to you in some way, whether it's just a piece of advice or the meal a day that you've been so instrumental in making sure that people get. And I think that that's an important trait that sometimes, as you've rightfully said, maybe comes out of some hardships of your own that you've encountered along the way. You grew up in a single parent home, or did you have both parents?
I had both parents, but again, sometimes there was arguing in the house, and that's also another thing that I remember. I think there are different types of trauma that children deal with that they take with them, I think, for the rest of their life. And when you see a man or a woman, the truth is you might not really be seeing the whole man or the whole woman.
Yeah.
Until you dig deeper.
Right, for sure. What sort of childhood? I'm just thinking about. You're fortunate to have had two parents, because there was a lot of us who grew up in a single parent home. We might have had, like in my case, obviously my dad was there. He would come every day and maybe take us to school or take us for a snack or whatever. But he actually wasn't living in our primary household. He actually had another home and a wife that he was going back to. So it was a very, as a child, you don't understand the implications of your particular situation and exactly what's happening. And I guess even if you don't have a single two-parent home, as long as there's some stability there and just continuity and consistency, I think children can adapt to those situations. But what sort of, I'm just curious to know, because this is one of my things I'm always interested in, what sort of disciplining happened in your household? Were they the typical Caribbean people who were like, I'm going to whoop your ass, you do something wrong, get the belt, they'd make you go get the switch or the belt?
I want to say no, to stop social services from coming to my house. But yeah, I mean, in those days, yeah, you would get beaten with a switch or I think the most common for me was probably a belt. And you had to go select the belt. So yeah, there was definitely a different type of discipline in those days. And even in school, in high school at the time, they still had punishment by,
And corporal punishment?
Yeah, so they still had that in school at the time. I don't know when they got rid of that, but I do think that some discipline is helpful. It helps children, I think, understand authority and perhaps respect authority, and also to understand that there are consequences for your actions.
Right.
I think that when things are introduced to Cayman, which Caribbean people are not used to doing, for example, putting a child in a corner, I don't know how effective that is, because I was never put in a corner.
Right.
I was just told if I did something, then X would happen.
Right.
And as a result, I didn't do the thing. So in a way, some form of discipline, it tends to deter bad behavior. Of course, I wouldn't support the type of discipline that would, break a child's arm or anything like that. Nothing like that ever happened to us or any of my friends that I know. So I wouldn't support any overly aggressive or really harmful behavior towards any child. But I do think that the way Caribbean children were brought up in the past, I do think that it worked for me. It did make me have an appreciation of authority, and did make me think about things twice before I did it.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into this, because this is one area in which I've done quite a bit of research. And I used to be a proponent of, if a child does something, you smack him or whatever. And over the years, I've actually changed my position on this, because number one, the scientific data and research shows that it's very harmful to children, psychologically and emotionally, even if you don't see the immediate harm that it's doing. So I'm assuming that your brother, who looks like he had some disciplinary issues, was also subjected to the same type of discipline that you were. So I'm sure he got a proper assing when he burned down the house, right?
I don't remember that part. I just remember him having to go to Jamaica.
Yeah.
For reforms.
I'm sure somebody must have grabbed him that day and gave it to him like he's probably never had it before.
Well.
And then how do you think? Like, what was the difference between him versus you, in terms of why maybe that worked for you but it didn't work for him?
I have no idea. Yeah. Because I never had the conversation.
Okay.
So I have no idea.
Yeah.
But maybe you could interview him.
Yes. I'm curious about, just how we perceive the world, because all of us think that we are not broken. All of us think that we're whole individuals and that we're functional, and just because we can get up and go to a job and maybe make money and do all these other things, we say, well, I'm a good person and these things helped me. And we might have commitment phobias, or there's certain things that might trigger like certain antisocial behavior in our personalities, and we don't always see how it's connected to everything collectively that we've gone through as children.
So what have your studies shown, like the stuff you read?
Well, I mean, the Caribbean is actually one of the most violent places in the world in terms of criminology and crime. And so it's been that way for a very long time. And so the thinking that we are somehow progressive, or that we are doing the right thing by continuing to entrench corporal punishment in our children from one generation to the next, actually has not proven in the real sense to be as effective as we might think. It's like you look at it from an anecdotal perspective and you think this is working, but then you look at Northwood Prison and you see the generations of gangsters and troubled youth that have gone through the system, and you look at the homes that they've come with. The vast majority of people in Northwood Prison have been subjected to corporal punishment in the home. It's not like they grew up going in time out in the corner and that just didn't work for them. No, they've actually been a product of that same select the belt and bring me the switch kind of mentality. But it's an interesting conversation. I think one day we'll probably have to dig a little bit deeper specifically. I can see I've piqued your interest a little bit.
Yeah, I can't comment on Northwood Prison because
I know.
I'm on the parole board.
Yeah, and this is something people may not know. Alric actually, like we said, he is an attorney, and so he's one of the persons who sits as a member of the parole board. So we can't talk directly about our prison system, but just prisons in general, whether it's Cayman, Jamaica, around the region, Latin and Central America, it's the exact same thing. Those countries are very traditional in how they treat children. And that treatment of children is like, you are still the property of your parents. And so you're under their thumb and you do what you're told and you speak only when you're spoken to. And there's so many issues in my mind that comes out of that. But we'll continue that. We won't go quite too deep into that today. But so Alric, you grew up in Windsor Park. At what point did you start to prioritize your education? Because obviously, I could see you being a little bit of a nerd in school. Were you always that way, or did this develop? Like, did you get to like junior school or middle school, as they call it here, and then high school, and you thought, okay, now I've got to buckle down? Because, what motivated you academically?
I guess I like certain subjects. I like bookkeeping, and I like math. I like numbers, but I didn't study because I love studying. I studied because I had to stay off the street.
Right.
Because I knew the kind of trouble my brother was getting into. So it was drugs, drug dealing, not drug using, but of course very harmful. Shooting his friend, going to prison, chopping up people. I focused on schoolwork because I just had to be off the street.
Right.
So it wasn't like I had some long-term goal.
Yeah.
I just had to be off the street.
So you were just basically, even within your home, looking at your brother. How much older was he? Probably about 8 years older?
Yeah, my brother was about 7 years older.
Right. So you saw things that was happening with him and things that were going on. And so at some point you decided that basically you don't want that to be your life.
Yeah. But being a child, you don't understand the full picture. You know, you just hear about things, and I remember having an issue with someone in school one time, and it occurred to me that I should mention it to my brother. You know, because your big brother's supposed to look out for you. But I remember having a second thought and saying, I better not mention this because I know what the result was going to be, because my brother was the kind of guy that if he said something, it was going to happen.
Right.
You know, it wasn't any conversation at all.
Wow.
So
he might go beat up this other kid just to kind of protect you, or maybe even worse.
Well, you just don't know.
Right.
You just don't know. Because I spent so much time doing the school work, not for academic achievement, but just to stay out of trouble, you know, I think I was good in accounting. And when I started to get good feedback from my accounting teacher in high school, that's when I decided that I wanted to be an accountant.
Okay.
It was because of that feedback, the positive feedback from school, from a teacher. And I had other good teachers too, like Eustace Francis, who was my economics teacher. Miss Evans, Peter Dutton. I had some really good teachers in high school. Mr. Dutton was my my bookkeeping teacher.
Right.
So because I like bookkeeping, I decided that I would like to be an accountant. And only because I liked bookkeeping, not because I knew anything about the actual career. Right. I just actually liked bookkeeping. And I decided to work for a year. So after high school, I worked at CIBC.
Okay.
And I was a fixed deposits clerk. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to work my way up in the industry, and had no intention of going to university at that time. At that time, I decided to just work, because at that time, jobs were so easily available in Cayman. I mean, you could leave one job today and get another job the next day or the same day. I mean, it was that easy in Cayman in those days. And one day, when I was working, my friend Sean Parchment told me he was going for an interview for a scholarship at this accounting firm, Coopers and Lybrand. And so I said, okay, well, if Sean is going to school, maybe I should try it. So again, it wasn't this thing about...
You didn't necessarily have a plan.
No, I didn't have any plan, but when I saw my friend doing it, that encouraged me. So I went into the interview, and to my surprise, the guy that was interviewing me was a partner at the firm. He was someone I knew from squash. And squash was something I picked up, around the end of middle school, and started to... Squash gave me a positive environment. Although I didn't appreciate it then as a child. Me and my friend Myron from the neighborhood actually ended up basically growing up on a squash court in South Sound. So that was a real positive influence.
Let's talk about that for a little bit.
And it had that unexpected turn, because who knew the guy that we were playing squash with was a partner in the accounting firm? I had no idea.
So how did you, I love racket sports. I played squash, it's a fun sport. I like tennis. But traditionally speaking, Caribbean people don't see those as Caribbean sports. That's that's rich white people stuff, So for most Caribbean people, if you're not playing football or cricket or maybe basketball, it's like, how do you get involved in squash? Now, I didn't start playing tennis until I was in university, but I lived in the States. And there's not so much of a divide there, but still there is a little bit of this idea in people's head there's certain sports for certain people. So how does a young man from Windsor Park get involved in squash? Like, how did you get started?
Squash was recommended by a teacher. So they asked Myron and I if we'd be interested.
Wow.
And so we just went down, and they used to call me trainee because I was like one of the last to be able to hit the ball.
Okay.
So everyone was getting all advanced, and I was just the last to catch up. And I was only training for a short while. And then, of course, we started to get selected to represent Cayman.
Right.
And on those trips were most of the parents of the expat children. And, you know, I guess from an early age, when everything was more integrated in Cayman,
yeah,
you know, we were more involved, and well, the expat families were more involved in our lives, and we saw more of them, in particular the squash court. I would say yes, that there were not, you know, a lot of people that necessarily look like me, but the junior squash program was definitely an integrated program, and definitely a place where, you know, both the expat parents and the local parents were, you know, very supportive of what we were trying to do. And I have to say, I didn't really appreciate the impact of sports at that time. But when you learn about, so squash is divided into an individual sport and a team sport. So whenever we would travel to Guyana or Trinidad or Jamaica or Bahamas, wherever it was, we had two sections. Obviously the individual section was just you as an individual trying to best yourself. But when it came to team, you had to forget about yourself as an individual, because it you know, every game that you win, it goes towards the team result. And you couldn't afford to have an ego and not listen to advice of your coach, or not listen to, or not consider the effect of your actions on your teammates, you know. So luckily squash was divided that way, individual and team sport, because, you know, it gives you both perspectives, you know. As an individual, if you lose, you know, that is sort of some decisions you took that affected only you. But then when it's the team day, because you would have individual, there would be a schedule, and you would see that individual matches are at these times, and then team matches are at these times. So on your team day, your attitude had to be totally different. Your attitude had to be, I have to take on board the advice that's going to make all of us better.
Right.
And if I don't do it, it not only impacts me, it impacts everyone else. Not only does it impact everyone else on the team, it impacts the whole country, because we're representing Cayman.
Right.
And, you know, these are some of the things I think about, you know, when I thought about running for office last time. That's one of the things that I thought about was, I'm lucky that I was in an environment where I learned these things, where I learned about organization, about teamwork, about doing things, not only thinking about yourself, but
greater good.
Yeah, you got to think about overall impact.
Yeah.
And I just think that on the surface, at least, sometimes when you look at issues in Cayman, sometimes you only see the surface, and sometimes you don't see the other details behind. And I think one of the things that drove me last time to be a candidate was to try to make a difference in the machinery. So everything that goes on in the background, the same way I thought about making a contribution to my team on the squash court, I thought the same way, you know, maybe I could be part of a machinery that that's responsible for making policy, that's responsible for making a big wave in Cayman. And if I was a part of that machinery, maybe we could achieve better things together for Cayman. My mind is still on that type of thought process, rather than going into something because I'm going to get something out of it. My thought is still, I mean, I could stay doing what I do in terms of,
just professionally,
professionally I could, but if there's a chance that you could get together with like-minded people and work as a team to get something bigger done for your whole country that just helps to lift, more people, then I think it's worth it to try it, but to find...
Let's go back just a little bit here. I want us to really delve in. So you start playing squash, and we always talk about consequences and how in life, things are so interconnected. In this day and age, the big buzzword is networking. So, we think about how to network with people. We got our way. We've got networking on social media. We've got professional networking groups where people try to get together and almost sort of force these relationships. But Alric, you just shared that even as a youngster, you were developing teamwork abilities, networking skills, the ability to be under someone else's direction and understand that you're the student and they're tutoring you, and you had to learn and try to improve, your game literally. And so those skills later on become very apparent to you as you grow into being a young man and come into your professional life. And ironically, as you just said, the same person that you might have been sitting next to maybe on the bus, going to an event representing Cayman or whatever, happens to be a partner at an accounting firm that now you're sitting in front of going, give me an opportunity, can I have a scholarship? And you had no idea the entire time who this man was. You just saw him as another parent.
Yeah, none of us did though. I mean, I guess the parents that had higher incomes, I think that maybe they probably associated with each other.
Right.
But we didn't necessarily go to the same places they did outside the squash environment.
Right.
And so we didn't benefit from that knowledge.
Yes.
That this person was a partner at an accounting firm, or this person was a partner at a law firm.
Yeah.
We didn't benefit from those things. We just went to the club and just played squash.
Right.
And it was just about, you have a good attitude, you're willing to work with other people. It was competitive because from a young age we were playing on a senior team, so it was very competitive. So you're playing, you're 11 years old and you're playing like adults. It's just on senior teams, right? So
what did your mom say when you came home one day and said, hey mommy, so and so, this teacher recommended that I go play squash? Was she like, what is squash? Did you have to buy your own rackets? Like, how did that kind of work out for you?
Yeah, so and those days, yes, my mother supported me then and supports me now. And she'll always call me to ask if I want some food. It doesn't matter how much you accomplish or how much you think you're ahead in the game. Your mother's always going to see you as her child and someone she cares for. So I got 100% support. When it came to the equipment, it's a good point. We didn't have a high income, so it's a very good point that you make about the rackets, because squash rackets are not cheap.
Exactly.
And in those days we had wooden rackets in those days. And of course,
hi honey, how are you?
Of course.
Big up to the folks here in Windsor Park. You know how it is. Sandra Road, anywhere you go.
Sandra's famous.
People know you, and we welcome the love and support. So thanks very much.
So the squash rackets changed from wooden rackets to I think graphite and I think titanium.
Yeah.
But you know, as the rackets changed, the prices also changed.
Right.
So you know, you can get a squash racket from $150, upwards, and so it is significant because if you hit a squash racket against the wall, it breaks, and then you can't really repair a broken racket.
Right.
I mean, obviously some of us, when we didn't have the money, had to just tape it up and try to play with it. But for the most part, it was an expensive venture. But
and did you guys have to fund it yourself, or as being part of the squash club, did you have them like doing fundraisers and different things that allow you to travel and to buy equipment and so on?
That's correct. So Butterfield Bank at the time was a big supporter of junior squash. So we had the Butterfield Junior Squash program, which really helped to fund, all those trips, and also contributions from club members. Again, as a kid, you don't really think about those things deeply.
Yes.
So you're just wondering, where's all the money going to come from?
Yeah.
But with the help of people like, Mr. Derek Tyler, who he's the guy that's really been. Derek Tyler was a biology teacher at Cayman Islands High School at the time. So Mr. Tyler was really the guy that was around us all the time. Like he was the coach, traveled with us, was the guy you talk to. He got injured the other day in a car accident.
Yes.
So he's kind of,
and his daughter Catherine plays squash. So
yeah,
I know.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So all of them play squash. So his wife who passed away, and brother Paul, Catherine's brother Paul. Obviously, Catherine was a junior and senior champ, but yeah, definitely this price, the cost of playing the sport is high, and on the surface, things look a certain way, but cost of things can be barriers to entry in Cayman for a lot of things,
Right.
So
thank God for those people in the community.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like I said, I think in those days we were more integrated. I think, and at least in relation to squash, we did come together. Expat families did help. All the kids out. They did come down to the club whenever we had a game in Cayman or overseas. When we needed a place to stay, they made sure that they were our chaperones. So I have to say, I kind of miss that type of relationship that I think Caymanians had with expats in those days.
Yeah.
I sort of think that these days there seems to be I think it probably started with in the education system where a decision was made so that if you're not a child of a government employee, and if you're not Caymanian, you have to go to a private school.
So when you were growing up, that policy wasn't in place?
Well, it wasn't in place at first, and then it came into place.
Okay.
Because remember, when I was growing up, it was the 1980s.
Yeah.
Early. Well, I graduated high school in 1990.
Okay.
So at the time, we had English friends and friends from other countries. We didn't think about the value of that at the time. But if you actually thought about it, you would see that when you enter the working world, you have to work with everyone, right? So I think
it gave you that sort of introduction into being a bit more diverse. even before you started working, you were just growing up in it, and it was part of the norm.
Yeah, unintentionally.
Yeah.
I mean, you just didn't think about it. It's like being on a squash court. You just go out there to have a good time. Number one, was what we were told, is to enjoy yourself. And then number two, you're to be
be your best.
Yeah, you be your best, right?
Yeah.
Because like I say, if you just focus on the win and you don't have a process,
right,
then you don't really understand your outcome.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a result.
Yep.
But then if you have to now teach someone about how you got there, then you just can't think about the win. You got to think about. So we had to.
All the steps. Yeah.
So basically, there was a dike road. We used to walk through the back of Windsor Park. In those days, it wasn't really developed. There was a big, it was basically the dikes. And we just walked through the back. I'm telling you this for a reason, because obviously being young, we didn't have cars, we didn't have transportation. And so we walked through the dikes, and the dike road would come out where the avenue is in South Sound.
Okay.
So that's how we got to South Sound most of the time.
Wow.
So we either ride the bicycle through the dikes, or we just walk and run through the dikes. And it was a lot easier than walking, all the way around through Walker's Road. Past.
I mean, Cayman is so small, right, that you forget.
Yeah.
This is Windsor Park, but literally on the other side of Windsor Park is South Sound. With
That's
your
correct.
multi-million-dollar homes and luxury vehicles, and people who now feel like they're miles and miles away from the reality of how people live in Windsor Park, but it's literally right there. And I wonder how many of those people have ever traversed through Windsor Park and vice versa. Like, how many kids now are just, walking the streets in South Sound, not causing any harm to anybody, just, going about their business. It seems like as we get more and more developed, there does appear to me to be a little bit of a divide and of a segregation, even based on the physical neighborhoods and stuff as well.
So Sound, I think, has changed a bit, because I remember there were a lot more Cayman families. The older Cayman families were in South Sound in those days, and I think some of those homes. Well, there seem to be more homes in South Sound now, which is not those older Cayman families. There are other people, but I would say that growing up on the squash court, definitely people would drop us home. So yes, they do have exposure to the area. But in terms of the other thing is that you probably know that people use Windsor Park as a shortcut when there's traffic. So yes, they do at least have a physical sighting of Windsor Park, but I think when it comes to hanging out, I don't really see many kids from outside Windsor Park actually hanging out in Windsor Park. I mean, in terms of expat kids, I don't see a lot of that happening. I mean, I think it would be great. I mean, I'll tell you why, because I attended a youth presentation a few days ago, and these were young people they were basically activists from different areas. They were under the umbrella of youth ambassadors, and they were representing different youth organizations. And what got my attention was, some of them are quite outspoken and quite knowledgeable and quite intelligent, and some of the children that they were addressing did not necessarily come from the same economic background. So you would have thought, if you were to judge anyone, you would have thought them automatically, well, some kids can't relate. Some kids in a high income situation can't relate to lower income, but you would get proven wrong easily, because children are children, and whether it's a high income environment or a low income environment, they still have issues in their homes.
Right.
So it might be different types of issues.
Yeah.
But kids still get driven to, suicide or having drugs, having various mental issues.
Yeah.
So when those two sets of kids start talking, you can see how beneficial it was, because both sides saw that, hey, we have a lot in common.
Right.
We just need to talk.
Right.
And I was thinking in my head that, we need to have more of this in Cayman, where children of different backgrounds are actually integrating.
Together. Yeah.
Because
let's get back to. We could stay here all afternoon talking. Trust me. But this is one of many conversations with Alric Lindsay. In case you're just tuning in, it's a new segment that we're doing here on Cayman Mall Road. But I want to go back to where you are now with the partner in the law firm, and we're going to wrap things up because these are short snippets. Short meaning, an hour or so into the life of individuals in our community. And so now you're sitting in front of, and we will come back to some of those issues with our young people for sure, because I know you're very much involved in some of these youth groups and stuff. But you're sitting in front of this partner. Basically, you said you were encouraged just by seeing another one of your peers do something positive, that you thought, well, why can't I do that? And so you subject yourself to an interview, and this partner's like, oh, I know you. You're from the squash club or the youth team or whatever, right? And then, so you felt like that had a major impact in him giving you the scholarship?
I didn't really do an interview, so I went to the interview, but I talked about squash.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and this is the key. Access to things in Cayman is the key.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the right person, what I've learned is it doesn't matter how much education you actually have or experience you actually have. If you don't know the right person, then the door is not going to be opened. And you can, there are people that say, regardless of your circumstances, you just work hard and you push.
Yes.
And that's true.
Yeah.
However, knowing someone does make a huge difference.
Yes.
And getting into the door. So that interview was basically a catch-up conversation.
Oh, wow. And then they gave you the scholarship.
Yeah, so gave me a scholarship, and I went to a small business school called Stetson in Florida.
Very good school, actually.
In a small town.
Yep, Stetson, Florida. And they have a great law school there as well.
If you drive too fast, you'll miss the school. So it's a small town. So the law school is, I think, in St. Petersburg. Where I went was DeLand, which is close to Daytona Beach. A lot of other Caymanians went there, Troy Burke from Subway, and Julie Adam that works at KPMG.
Okay.
So a lot of Caymanians went to Stetson. University, I'm not sure if you want to talk about university, but
we're gonna get there. I think right now we're probably gonna just wrap it up a little bit, put a pause on it, because we've only it's just a drop in the bucket. But I think that we have so many more conversations with Alric Lindsay that we'll definitely be having. But I think that's maybe a good spot to stop, because I can only imagine what university experience was like for young Caymanian back in those days. I do want to get into a little bit of that. What Alric experienced abroad as a Caribbean Black person. Were there any prejudices that he might have encountered? What was that experience like? First time living abroad on his own. So we'll get into all of those details. So folks, thank you so much for tuning in. As we said at the onset of this program, this is our very first conversations with Alric. Is going down in the history books as being the first conversations with guests here on Cayman Mall Road, and you'll see many more people coming after Alric. And the idea is these are going to be on location, out of the studio. So sometimes you guys might see us at the beach. You might see us at the barbecue, jerk stand, sitting down having a jerk sandwich or a piece of jerk chicken or whatever with Alric. And it's just about being the authentic people, like who we are. There's no need for pretenses. I mean, here in Cayman Mall Road, we're all friends and family adjacent in some way or another. And so, we're interested in Alric. We want to know more about him. So this is our very first interview with Alric. And I want you guys to stay tuned for many more. We do have some other people who are lining up interviews already. So, Alric, thank you so much for joining us for this first segment. Hopefully it wasn't too painful for you. As we said to people, we don't construct anything in terms of questions. As a matter of fact, I don't even, write down a single question or really have a preconceived notion. I think it's important for conversations to flow like this in a very natural way, and that's why the show is called Conversations With. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. And yes, on the surface, they seem like normal questions, easy questions, but I do think they're tough questions, especially where difficult experiences are involved and hard work was necessary to take you forward. So on the surface is what a lot of people see.
Yeah.
And I think your show is going to allow the person to dig deeper and for your viewers to dig deeper.
Yeah.
To understand who this person really is and why they're standing for the things they're standing for.
Yeah. And of course, as always, Cayman Mall Road is always about you, the audience, participating. So if you have a question for Alric that you'd like us to ask somewhere along the line during one of our Conversations With segments, by all means, please reach out to us by email, tips@caymanmallroad.com, or WhatsApp 324-1612, and submit your question, because maybe you've thought of something now that you're sitting here listening to Alric that you want to know a little bit more about, and we'll be happy to work that into the conversation as we continue to have these interview segments. So again, folks, you've been tuned in to Conversations With, a new show here in Cayman Mall Road. We were on location at Windsor Park. As you can hear, there's some guys over here slapping down the dominoes, playing dominoes. The ice cream truck has gone by. The ice cream guy is hustling his little money for the afternoon. We've had other people in the community walking up and down and driving in and out of their neighborhood. It's a very typical day here in the Cayman Islands. It's a little warm. We're trying to stay in the shade a little bit, but it's just a beautiful summer day. And we're just going to be doing a lot of these segments. I hope that you guys enjoy them. And as usual, thank you very much for tuning in. And until the next session, please stay safe.
Breaking if it hits the ground. I gotta find a way out. Oh, it's a sinking symphony. Playing as the ship goes down. It's a porcelain epiphany. Breaking if it hits the ground. I gotta find a way out.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.